All right. Welcome, everyone, to the show. My name is Shane. This is Black Swan Revelations. Today, we're just doing a little bit of, before we get started, we're just going to do a little bit of weather report. We're just having a look around, having a little gander. So I'm using this app here it's in Cochrane, Alberta. So I can actually have a look at what is going on. Just have a look at what's going on in our area. So this is where I am. Let's just zoom in a little bit. You can see this storm actually moved through earlier this morning. I'm not a weather expert, but I started looking into this stuff. You can kind of see what's going on. So this is where I am right here, and looks like probably in about an hour or so, we're going to get to some blue skies. Fantastic, right? So let's look at this here. Let's have a look here. Let's zoom out. If you go to the east of us, just north of Brooks, they're getting quite a bit of rain, ice, a little bit of extreme weather. See that little orange right in the middle there? But it's not for a long period of time. It's just brief and then rain after that. So if you go all the way across Canada, all the way into Saskatchewan, you can see some another weather front. I'm paying attention to the red because that just tells you there's a lot of precipitation. So let's go down to Texas here. Let's see what's going on down there. Denver, let's go down here, down. All right, where are we here? Where am I? There we go. Oh, hang on. I went too far over. Hang on. Whoa, where am I? Whoa. Let me just zoom out a little bit here. I lost myself. Okay, where are we here? Okay. I went too far over. Okay, here's Dallas. Oh, okay, here we go. Okay, so we're in Texas here. Let's just zoom in. Let's go down here. Look at this one. Look at this storm coming in. Wowzers. There's San Antonio, Del Rio, all these places here. I've never been down here. Been at the Texas airport, Houston airport. Let's just have a look here. What's going on here? What are we paying attention to here? We want to look at Kerrville. Kerrville got flooded on July 4th, arguably July 3rd, July 4th. Look at this storm coming in. My goodness. Great balls of fire. That is approaching Kerr probably within 6 hours or so, something like that. Within a few hours. Does that look right? So heavy precipitation, heavy rain, and then lightens up, more rain, and then more of these little cells building up. So I feel for the people in Kerr County, that's this whole area here, I feel for you because you're going to get more rain. You're going to go get more rain, less comfort. Lots of rain going on here. All right. What else do we got going on? So let's just have a quick look over here. This is something that I pay attention to as well. So this is called Flight Radar 24. Look at all the planes. Look at this. This is craziness. Can you guys see that all right? Lots of planes. Look at that. All right. So let's go. Let's zoom in a little bit. Where am I? Let's have a little look. I'm over here in Alberta. Notice where all the planes are. Oh my goodness. You guys got a lot of crazy planes, man. A lot of stuff happening. So if we're going over to where I am, let's go over here. Boy, hardly any planes going around here, right? So here's a plane. We can track. This is WestJet. Here's a plane coming in from Fort McMurray. That's where I used to live. This plane's coming in from Victoria. This one looks like it just took off. Going to Prince George. They're veering towards BC now. So basically all the planes land here and then they head north and then they take off. So what I want to look at over here is what's going around in my area. If I zoom in a little bit, have a little look, a little gander. Let's put on the weather filter. Let's turn this bad boy on. Whoa. What green? Is that pollution? What's going on here? Let's see. Let's have a look here. This thing's acting weird now. I don't know what that is. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's precipitation. Okay. Here's the clouds. My goodness. I'm just checking the planes out, see if there's any cloud seeders around. Nope, I don't see any yet. So, but you can see the precipitation right now, cloud covering. Let's just lighten this up so I can see through the clouds a little bit more, a little better. Zoom in here. All right, so nothing seems to be happening in this area. There is an airport called Springbank, just a little bit right in this area here. Harmony. Let me just turn this off real quick here. Springbank Airport. This is where there's a couple of cloud seeding operations going on here. One is specifically, I think it's Northern Idaho is their base, but they have a couple of seeder planes here hired by the insurance companies inside of Alberta to prevent our towns from getting dumped with hail, because there's a lot of areas, especially in the Northeast, they get hit with a lot of hail. So does Airdrie. Airdrie gets blasted with a lot of hail. So the insurance companies are on board with cloud seeding. They hire companies to cloud seed, and the goal is to reduce hail instead of golf ball-sized hail down to tiny hailstones, just tiny, not enough to damage your windshield. So that's the idea behind it. Some people say they're actually causing more storms and not, bigger hailstones than not. It is a money racket though. Like they do, insurance companies make a lot of money, so they're trying to protect the idea of paying people out. They don't want to do that. They want your money, but they don't want to pay out. So the way they cover themselves is by hiring companies that cloud seed. All right, enough of that. That's not why we're here. But I just like to every once in a while just do a little bit of a weather report and just to share with you guys what's actually going on around me. We had a lot of rain past few days, just little spurts here and there. Now things seem to be clearing up a bit, but I feel for Texas. So what I wanted to do in this video is talk a little bit about Rainmaker again, because they're in the news. I think I feel like I was one of the first people to talk about Rainmaker from the perspective of, did they do this? Were they responsible? As I was digging it up, then all of a sudden you see Rainmaker coming out, not because of me, but he started to do more interviews. And so what I've been doing is trying to document all the interviews that he's been doing and then share my thoughts as we go. And I wanted to let my audience know that there is such a thing as cloud seeding. It is in operations all over, not all over Canada, all over the United States, specifically in Texas, New Mexico, and other regions, other counties, other states. And in Canada, it's mostly in Alberta. Alberta is the capital. Hey, sis, how you doing? Alberta is the capital of cloud seeding. Insurance companies pay for these companies to do it. It's being tested in BC. It's being tested in Quebec, and that's it. That's it for Canada. So I am in cloud seeding capital of Canada, literally in my backyard, literally. All right. So let's learn a little bit about the power of weather modification. Let's determine, like, is this a thing? can these companies actually produce rain? Because they call themselves weather modifiers. But what seems to be happening as of late is Augustus, the CEO and founder of Rainmaker, is starting to say what their company does is just minimal. Like they hardly do anything. They hardly make a dent in anything. Like it's so minimal. I don't even know why you guys pay me. I don't even because it doesn't really work. Like he's starting to go down that road, but 30 days ago he was like, we can manipulate weather, but now he's trying to move away a little bit and saying, no. We induce rain, but it's only like in minutes and then it goes away. So we're not responsible for the flood in Kerr County. That's not us. We were not seeding over that county on July 4th. We did not produce rain. We can't produce rain out of nothing. Like he's all over the map. So we're trying to just build a case of whether or not it works or if it doesn't. If it works, now we could focus on the things that Augustus has been saying. If it doesn't work, if it's just a conspiracy, then whatever he says doesn't really matter. But if he believes it works, and there's an industry out there that believes it works, and there's billions of dollars being spent in other countries, i.e., China, with over 38,000 employees, and 2 universities dedicated to weather modification programs, you better believe it is serious. This is serious stuff. All right, so let's have a look at our first video, and hopefully I don't get too many copy strikes, and hopefully this live doesn't get shut down. So I'm going to show some videos with some music and stuff, but I think it's just to paint a picture here of what's actually going on. So let's just have a look here. Let's go to, let me see here. What would be our first video of the day? Let me go. Let me go to this one. I just want to introduce. There's a little bit of music here, so I'm not going to play the whole video, but I think it's important to show some of this just so you can get an idea about what we're talking about. All right, so the title of this video is How Cloud Seeding Can Increase Rain and Snowfall. Let me just make sure you guys can see it. Yes, you can. All right, let's go here. All right.
Here in Modesto, California, pilots are prepping this plane to fly into the center of a storm. Flares on the wings and fuselage will inject a substance called silver iodide into the storm clouds, causing water within the clouds to freeze and increasing the amount of precipitation that falls.
We can't make a storm happen, and we can't create conditions in the storm that are ideal. Those happen naturally. And what we're doing is just taking advantage of existing conditions, naturally occurring conditions, and trying to make the storm, again, more efficient from a water supply perspective.
It's called cloud seeding, and as futuristic as it sounds, it's been around since the 1940s. Today, states, utility companies, and ski resorts alike pay companies like Weather Modification International significant money to seed storm clouds and increase snowfall in the drought-ridden American West and worldwide.
Our current project is about $4 million a year. We're very well supported. We have a lot of local stakeholders that are investing in it.
Until recently, the evidence for cloud seeding's efficacy was murky, but research has finally shown unequivocally that it works, and there's been no evidence to show that the seeding agent, silver iodide, is harmful at the current level that it's used. Blustered says that Idaho Power sees an 11 or 12% increase in snowpack in some areas that it seeds, while Karkit says Turlock's program results in about 60 to 90,000 extra acre-feet of water every year. While it's no cure for the West's historic drought, dozens of cloud seeding programs across the country are ramping up right now as winter gets underway.
Okay. So that's just a little snapshot of that. So now let's go to a video clip from Augustus himself to see whether or not it actually, weather modification companies, to see whether or not they can actually make it rain, because that's why we're here. Let's have a look here. This is a little piece produced by Sean Ryan. Again, I hope I don't get too many copy strikes. This is for educational purposes, Sean. So don't make my video go down, Sean. In fact, I wouldn't mind being on your show if you want me to. We can talk about cloud seeding if you want, and we could talk about Augustus and what's going on. I'd like to pick his brain and say, do you think this guy's lying? Do you think he's being transparent? Do you think he's telling the truth? So let's go to a little promo piece that Sean Ryan created here.
We are tired of you dumping heavy metals all over our county.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not the one to talk to about that.
No, you are, but you're the one that's doing it. So I've been taking rain samples. I have over 20 samples, and every time you fly, we get high amounts of aluminum, barium, strontium, titanium, magnesium. So I want to know, are you aware of what you're doing? I know you think it's like to increase water supply for Turlock and Modesto, but it's not really happening.
How much have you looked into, the weather manipulation stuff? There's a lot of conspiracies out there on it.
My 20 rain samples will show you that on the days that you're spraying or releasing your flares, we have copious amounts of aluminum, magnesium. There's been barium, strontium, and titanium spheres. Titanium also in your flares?
Weather manipulation is on everybody's mind right now. You make it rain, so I thought this would be a fascinating interview to be able to talk to somebody that knows actually what the hell's going on.
Dude, I run a weather manipulation company. so yeah.
The aftermath of Hurricane Helene still inflicting maximum pain on communities in North Carolina. Many still cut off from power, running water, and communications. The death toll still rising. By an NBC News count, 121 people are now confirmed dead.
Have you heard of Project Storm Fury?
No.
The U.S. Air Force, in collaboration with the U.S. Weather Bureau, which eventually became like NOAA and the National Weather Service, they were flying into the Atlantic Ocean to seed hurricanes to try to mitigate the amount of damage that they did before they broke against the eastern seaboard.
What if this does intensify hurricanes or take the rain away from the Amazon and create a drought? I mean, once it's happened, how many people would pay the price by making the Sahara green, eliminates the rain in the Amazon? Then we got to figure something out immediately because it's going to affect all those people.
The first time that anybody successfully intentionally modified the weather was in 1946 in Western New York. They made it snow over the Appalachians. What the idea was in Operation Popeye, which is what we did in Vietnam, was to extend the monsoon season, cause more precipitation over the Ho Chi Minh Trail to impede the logistics of the economy. When you take your first drink from the cup that is the natural sciences, you find atheism. But down at the bottom of the glass, there's God staring back at you. I wanted to study physics because I wanted to see whether God was real or not.
And then you get introduced to Peter Thiel.
I was invited to a fundraiser for Blake Masters at Peter's house in LA. And that was the first time that I met him. That was before I became a Thiel Fellow.
Technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do.
Like I said, there's just so many conspiracies about weather manipulation. Was the Hawaii wildfires, was that part of, did that play anything into that? There's the Hurricane Helene in North Carolina. Did that play anything into that? And
Milton in Florida.
yeah. Well, a lot of people are really skeptical of weather modification, me being one of them.
On the geopolitical side, the technology's potential to alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions could trigger sharp opposition by some nations.
And so why do they want you to do this? I mean, is it the aquifers or is it farming?
Yeah, the aquifers are running out, the farms, the states actually pay to the tune of tens of millions of dollars a year. And then at the federal level, hundreds of millions. They pay farmers not to farm. They pay them not to farm because they don't want them to use the water.
No kidding.
Right now, if you look at like the border of Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia just built a dam on the Nile River. Egypt will collapse if they do not have enough water. I think it's Mark Twain who said it. Whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over.
Wow. Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting over. That's interesting, coming from a weather modification company. All right, so that gives you a little bit of a snapshot. Now I wanted to show you another piece about what they actually do. So I think this is important to build our case. We have to approach it from the perspective, does Augustus, founder of Rainmaker, does he believe that they can modify weather? Because if he does, then if we can hear him in interviews saying that they can't do it, now it's a contradictory. Now it's a contradiction, I should say. Okay, so let's go over here. And let's go watch this video. This channel is Tech Today with Eric Tarzinski. Race to control the weather with Augustus Dorco. So we are going, and this guy's the founder of Contrary. He is also he is a what do we call him? I lost the wording. He gives money to Rainmaker. What do you call it? Not a founder, an investor. He's an investor into Rainmaker. So he's interviewing Augustus. He's interviewing Augustus with Rainmaker. Boy, I need more coffee today. We just got started. All right, let's listen to this interview.
Rico, founder and CEO of Rainmaker, joins us to talk about drone-based weather modification and the future of programmable rain. Augustus, thanks for joining.
Hey guys, nice to hang and talk with you, Eric. Thanks for having me, man. I'm the CEO of Rainmaker. We're a next generation cloud seeding company that uses novel drones, novel anti-icing capable drones, and then our own weatherized.
It's important to note as well that this video came out 2 months ago, just over 2 months ago. So for context, a lot of these videos, including one of Sean Ryan's interview, he interviewed Rainmaker like 1 month ago. So what I'm trying to do is go back in time. This company's only 1 year old. It's only 1 year old. So he's doing a lot of stuff in a year. So what I also want to find out is there a chance that perhaps he was working in New Mexico before they got blasted with a flood? Because there's lots of areas around the United States that are getting hit with floods. And there's more to come. We're just entering into the first month of hurricane season in the United States. So this is what I'm trying to figure out here. All right, let's continue.
Just meteorological radar and radar processing algorithms to measure the amount of precipitation that we induce from our drone-based seeding operations, ultimately to make water abundant and end water scarcity.
Why does cloud seeding matter in 2025?
I think that there's two angles that make it very relevant. First of all, everybody needs water, right? If you are a farmer and you are in the Central Valley or in the southwestern United States, then you need water just to continue operating the way that you historically have. We need more water if we're going to grow our agricultural base. We need water to prevent the Colorado River watershed from collapsing and do ecological preservation and conservation. We need water for reindustrialization, right? If you want to build more TSMC plants or data centers or factories of any variety, then you need water as one of the fundamental primitives for industrial production. So there's all of that domestically focused internal rationale for why we should produce more water via cloud seeding. But then there's also the geopolitical angle. And the geopolitical angle is that China spends hundreds of millions of dollars per year on their cloud seeding program. They have 38,000 employees in their weather modification office. They're actively greening the deserts in Mongolia and filling up their reservoirs via cloud seeding. And they have 2 universities that offer weather engineering degrees. And so the choice that we have to make is not just as to whether we want American farmers to have more water and American industry to have more water, but also whether we want to lose out on the race between our primary geopolitical rival on a technology that will ultimately govern the skies and the atmosphere all over the planet.
So, all right. So far, I should be running a live poll, but do you feel like Augustus from Rainmaker, do you feel like there's any doubt in his mind that they can manipulate the weather? Like they're not just trying to help farmers grow crops. This is the shallow area of this ocean that we're actually diving into right now. If you stay in the shallow waters, you're going to be, we're talking about the crops on the surface level, and this is what these seeding companies are trying to do. No, he just mentioned they're trying to make sure that the aquifers are full, and also they want to re-engineer from Texas all the way into Colorado, Nevada, all the way over to California, all of New Mexico, all that area. They want to re-engineer that whole area and make it so that it's almost like the Garden of Eden, because that's where they get a lot of drought right now. So if they could turn that whole system into an area where it's known to have water, you can now sell that to other countries. You could sell that technology. You can say, look, we revamped this whole area. This used to be desert. Now look at it. Yes, we had some floods. We lost a few people, but it's kind of like the old saying, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. I think that was quoted by Joker in Batman, in Michael Keaton's Batman, or Tim Burton's Batman. The point is, they're not just trying to help the farmers out. It looks like that on the surface, but if you go to 50,000 feet, if you can re-engineer states and say, look, these are now, they have water everywhere, rivers everywhere. Yes, we flooded places out, but look at it today. Look what we've done. Would you like that? So you approach the continent of Africa and you say, would you like water? Look what we did. It was desert. Because it doesn't help to use a state that is already green and already with water, lakes. Like, think of Minnesota. We used to live there for like a year, the land of 10,000 lakes. I can almost surmise that there's not very much rain seeding or cloud seeding going on in Minnesota. They're focusing on the desert regions, the regions that get a lot of drought, because if they can turn those and build up a portfolio, look, desert region in our own country, it's not illegal for them to destroy their own states. I know that's going to sound like a stretch. What is illegal if the United States of America used weather modification programs to destroy China or any other nation? That's illegal. China cannot do that to the United States. So instead, if it's about money, if it's about water, fighting over water, if you could produce a glorious portfolio that says, look, this was a desert region and we now made it into rivers, lakes, streams, aquifers all over the place. We can do the same thing for you. We can help you out. That's the 50,000 foot view. And there are government agencies that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars in this technology, or millions of dollars, I should say. China's spending over $1 billion. So it's a race. This is the race right now to perfect this technology, arguably at the expense of some of your regions in your country. This is what's going on right now. China has no problem. Half their country has been seeded or will be seeded by cloud seeding organizations that they've produced. Because again, Augusta said there's 38,000 employees. So half the country is being combed over with cloud seeding operations. That's not a small venture. So they're doing it. They're doing it. And as Augusta said, in America, North America, arguably the United States specifically, has been doing this since the 40s. I would say it goes back to 1885, but that's just me. Any of the research that I've done, this goes back a long ways. Long ways. Okay. Let's continue with the interview. I have to break this up a little bit because it's for educational purposes. That way I don't get any strikes. I don't get it shut down, all this kind of stuff. All right. Let us continue.
So cloud seeding is not new, right? It's been around since 1946, but curious from your perspective here, what is different this time around, both from a technology point of view, but also from a business fundamentals point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. So you hit the nail on the head. Attribution was the primary problem. Can you attribute specific volumes of precipitation to your intervention? If you fly a plane into a cloud and sprinkle some magic dust and then it rains, who's to say that that cloud wouldn't have rained anyway, right? And then even if you do accept that you induced precipitation anthropogenically, how much value did you create? How much water do you create? That was always very difficult to answer. Statistical evaluations where you'd say, in the target region over the year, you got 3% more rain, had huge error bars because the weather's naturally quite variable. What changed in 2017 and then again in 2023 was researchers from the National Center of Atmospheric Research and then ETH Zurich realized if you have the right kind of radar, then you can track the freezing of droplets in clouds and then the growth of those ice crystals into sufficiently large crystals such that they precipitate and then fall either as snow or rain.
Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins. Listen, I've spent the last 43 years now working with people all over the world in 100.
You can track that process from immediately when you emit particulate in the cloud, in our case from drones, all the way to the point when it ends up as water on the ground. And that fundamental innovation in remote sensing, and then also satellite-based sensing products and in situ probes, that's how you can validate that precipitation is man-made. And that's the fundamental innovation upon which Rainmaker is built technologically. With respect to the business model.
Okay, so he said a lot there, but basically the idea is before it was very hard to trace what was working. Like we hired you, but we don't know if it actually worked. So what they did in Colorado is they specifically flew a plane into the clouds in a zigzag motion, almost like making initials. So let's say if it was Rainmaker, you would go R and M, and then you go back and you trace it with radar and you go, I want to see if the letter R and M shows up in the clouds based only where we flew, exactly where we flew. So if we use a drone and it makes the letter R and the letter M, can we tell, will those letters show up in the clouds? And on the radar, because it was detecting this, they were able to say, yes, significantly, we can see precipitation increased in those letters. So we know it works. This is in 2017. It is not a guessing game. They're not guessing. And in fact, I would suggest that Rainmaker is the tippity top of the food chain when it comes to weather modification, specifically in Texas. This is what they do. They make it rain. Their company is called Rainmaker. They don't disperse clouds. That's not their goal, is to just make a cloud disappear when they get to it. They make it rain. So anytime he says that we approached a cloud and it dispersed and there was nothing within 45 minutes, within 20 minutes, he's not telling the truth, because that's not the foundation. That's not the DNA of their organization. They have their meteorologist from one of their towers, their proprietary radar towers, and they will say, Rainmaker, let's go. Augustus, we got some clouds moving in. We got some precipitation moving in. If we hit it at the right time and the right height, we can make it rain. Get those planes up. Get the drones up. The average operation for Rainmaker is 3 drones, arguably 50 grams of silver in each one of these drones. Maybe less, maybe more. But that's a typical operation. 3 drones, most likely to triangulate a cloud, hit it in 3 regions, and then it'll rain. It'll produce more rain. They're not trying to make it just rain whatever's in the clouds. They want to make more rain. It's what a rain-making company does. So now we're getting into some of the fundamentals of why perhaps this is a business and all this kind of stuff.
Right now, we do cost plus services. So we will install our radar, bring our drones, bring our teams to states, municipal, public works departments, federal governments, some of which are international. And we will sell our services. And then we'll measure and report on how much water we're producing. Once we've reached this critical threshold of transparency and academic acceptance in attribution, what we want to transition to is commodity sales. We want to sell water by the gallon, by the acre foot. What should be done is success-based contracting. That's what I would prefer, because I can actually produce way more value via cloud seeding than I can currently capture in the cost plus model. And so that's the fundamental innovation.
Okay, so he's very intelligent, whereas I am not so intelligent. I'm a little bit slow when it comes to this technology. I've only been learning about this stuff in the last week or so, week or two, arguably, reading lots, doing lots of research and stuff. So what he basically said is, ideally what would be nice is to be paid per bottle of water. I'm really dumbing this down. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. If I seed a cloud and I produce 1 cup of rain, I want to get paid per cup of rain that I produce, because it is a success. So success contracts are the preferred route, meaning I promise or I guarantee success, and you will pay me for the amount of extra rain that I produce that otherwise wouldn't have happened. That's the model that he is leaning towards. And some of the people in the comments are saying, so the Texas flood was probably caused by our own government. And I would say you're probably more accurate than inaccurate, because this goes higher up. He's just a rung. He's not at the tippity top of the rung of global weather modification. And I believe there's probably only a handful of actors that are actually trying to manipulate the planet for the better, for the worse. But he is being contracted by local counties, by farmer associations, regional associations, governmental bodies that go higher up. And it gets to the point where it's like, well, you can't blame him necessarily if your whole government organization endorses this. If they're trying to sell this technology to other countries to profit, to shake hands behind closed doors, that's the problem that you're actually facing at the expense of people. So Kerr is getting lambasted by floods and nobody's going to say it was their responsibility. Because if you go to the companies themselves, they'll deflect. They'll say, that's not what we're doing. We're not creating storms. We're filling aquifers. And then you have meteorologists that are on the payroll of the government to say, nothing to see here. It's conspiracy theories. It's people that are talking about chemtrails, and they'll always default to that. They always say, yeah, we don't believe in chemtrails and all this kind of stuff. But that's not what we're asking. We're asking, were you close by Kerr County? Did you create or help precipitate the floods in Kerr County? If so, then somebody needs to be held responsible for that, because over 100 people died, and people will continue to die on your watch, and that's not acceptable. One person is too much, and they're washing this stuff away. On one hand, they're saying this is amazing. We could do this. Since 2017, we can pinpoint this stuff. We can tell you with all our charts, with all our graphs and everything, that this is legit. And we want you to pay us for success. Like I said, the cup analysis. Fill up this cup, you pay me for every cup that gets full. You don't say things like that unless you believe that you could produce. The opposite of that would be, pay me and it's 50-50. Don't know if it's us. Don't know if it's the rain. Don't know if it's something else happening. Don't know. That's not what he's saying. He's saying, I would prefer that you pay us on success. That's if I had my choice, I would say pay up for every time I produce rain, because we could quantify it. We could qualify everything. We could justify it. That's how we prefer to be paid. We're not there yet, but we're getting very close. And again, the idea, again, to dumb it down, not to say you guys are dumb. I'm saying I'm dumb. I'm saying I have to make it as simple as possible. You destroy the states all the way to California, from Texas all the way to California and in between. You destroy all those states and you re-engineer it so you could build up your portfolio so that you can go to other countries that need water. They don't care if places get flooded, if it works, because then they can clean up the mess afterwards. But if you don't have water, you can't go more than 3 days without water. So it's very important. And don't think the countries aren't looking at what's going on in the United States, going, look at all the floods these companies are producing. It's amazing. We will write the check. If you could produce floods in our region and cause rains and torrential downpours, we will pay you money, because it's cleaning up the riffraff anyway. Like, some of these homes got to go. Some of these places, they're old. We got to get rid of this. Let's build on top of this new infrastructure, this new area that we just flooded out. Let's rebuild it. And we're going to use government funding, because we're going to get so much money from these other countries that are going to want us to hire us to do the same. So we'll have money to rebuild these homes. It's just going to be at the expense of people. And it's sad, but the evidence is there. And what I'm trying to do is trying to document that this is a black swan event happening in your country right now. You just can't see it until it's too late. And then you're like, oh man, we should have saw this coming. Black Swan has been talking about this since July 2nd, that this is coming in America, that this is now he's building a case as to why they're doing it. It's not just to help the farmers harvest a better crop. It's re-engineering states. Buy the land back, move people out, and rebuild. Bigger, better, badder. All right. So let's continue here. And this will make more sense. By the time I'm done this video, you're going to walk away and you're going to be, holy smolars, holy smolars. If we're not close to the end times, I don't know. I don't know where we are in time. If this isn't the end times, if this isn't approaching the end times, then I'm not sure where we're at.
And where we're headed.
What do you think is holding cloud seeding back from becoming commonplace? At this point, is it purely the skeptics and a cultural question versus real world feasibility?
I would say that there's two primary components. The first of which is the conflation of cloud seeding with chemtrails or solar radiation modification. In short, cloud seeding is making existing clouds rain or snow more than they would naturally. You need to have a big fluffy cloud in the first place. If you see a long streak in the sky, whether you think that's a contrail or a chemtrail, it's not cloud seeding. And so states like Florida recently passed legislation to ban all of it because they don't know the difference and they don't know the safety data around cloud seeding, of which we have 80 years. And then there's solar radiation modification, dimming the sun that reaches the Earth to cool the planet down, also has nothing to do with cloud seeding. That one is more controversial. This is just, cloud seeding is just a water supply tool. So there's this cultural and political aspect for one that I think is opportunity for us to educate people, particularly legislators. And then the second component that matters a lot is remote sensing data. Most of the Western United States does not have radar coverage, meaning that we couldn't even target and attribute precipitative outcomes to our intervention. And that's why Rainmaker's vertically integrated radar production, so that we can start installing these radars first across the rocky Western United States, and then second, throughout all of the rest of the world that does not have radar coverage.
How much do you think about cloud seeding as being a geopolitical arrow in the quiver of the US versus, say, just a commercially interesting, relevant, helpful application for states, counties, you name it, across the country?
Those two things are intertwined, right? Like economic well-being and progress within the United States builds up the industrial base writ large, which then bleeds into geopolitical negotiations, because if we can produce more, then we're more well situated globally. However, very acutely, China has publicly stated that they plan to have the best-in-class global weather modification system and then export this throughout the rest of the world. And though they have never explicitly looped into Belt and Road, if you can think about the scenario where African nations, Middle Eastern nations, Latin American nations need more water, choosing between an American company and a Chinese state entity where they get their water from gives you huge geopolitical leverage over countries or opportunity to collaborate with them. And so if I'm going to choose between a world where Saudi and the Emirates and the new government in Syria and all of the Horn of Africa get their water from China, and China can turn it on and off, versus one where it's an American company where specific states are able to contract at their leisure with us, I will choose the latter 100 times out of 100.
Okay, so said a lot there. The idea is if they can build an institution, a corporation, a entity where you can turn water on and off at will, countries will pay for that. And China is very close to being successful. And if they could do it in their country, other countries are going to line up at the door with China to buy the technology, and China will have the sole ability to be able to turn the water on or off. On or off. And Augustus said, I would rather have companies in the US be able to basically turn off the water or on, off, on, off. So you got to ask yourself the question, are you comfortable with that idea that governing bodies, agencies, private companies, are you okay with the idea of a company like Rainmaker to be able to say, you didn't pay your utilities last month, or you didn't agree with what we were talking about politically, we're going to turn off the water here. Or if you could turn it off or on, you could flood an area. Let's not be naive anymore. This is where things are going. the idea to rule the states individually and say, if you don't cooperate, we're going to flood out your region. Flood, or we're going to cause drought by turning off the rain. I'm not making this stuff up. He just said it. If China gets in there, they're going to be able to be in a continent like Africa and turn the rain on or off with their technology. Saudi Arabia, Europe, anywhere else that buys from their technology. Wouldn't you rather have the US turning it on or off? Wouldn't that be better? Yes, that's a cool sounding idea, but to get there, you have to turn it on and off on your own people first. The US can't do it to China. That's illegal. Just read the 1972 treaty that says we can't use weather modification technology to harm another country, another nation. But it doesn't say you can't harm your own nation. It's not there. You won't find it. That's the problem. So they're building up their portfolio by destroying states with the purpose of beating China. It's almost like racing to the moon. They want to beat Russia to the moon. So now they want to beat China with weather modification technology. They want to be first. China's first. They're way ahead of the game. They spent over $1 billion. The United States maybe spends 100 to 200 million. Maybe. So they're way behind in that. So that's what this whole thing is about. It's about a race. If you look at it, and if you just look at contrails, and you're like, that's it right there, you're missing the bigger picture. You're missing it, because they'll argue with you till they're blue in the face that chemtrails, not contrails, chemtrails are a conspiracy. And if you go over there too long, you're going to miss that they're actually causing harm with cloud seeding in the States, because you're distracted. You're like, oh, chemtrails. And they're laughing on their way to the bank because you're going down that rabbit hole, which may or may not be true. But they're geoengineering their own state. They're changing it. They're terraforming it right before your very eyes. And you're stuck looking up at chemtrails, but you're missing the storms where they're documenting, they're saying they're actually seeding clouds in your neighborhood over your skies. And you're looking at airplanes, you're looking at airliners going, I think that's a problem. Meanwhile, they're seeding like crazy all around you, and you're ignoring those ones. You're like, I think that's a conspiracy. Chemtrails has to be something. And your focus is diverted over here. Meanwhile, they're telling you that the floods are natural. Nothing to see here. So you focus on chemtrails. You're like, well, the news and media outlets and everyone else is saying that these are all natural floods. So there's nothing to see here. I'm going to look at chemtrails from airlines. And I'm going to say, that's the problem. You're missing it because they're doing it right before your eyes. All right. And yeah, and there's like, man, the idea that children are being harmed in any way because governments, companies are doing this kind of thing, it's bad. It's really bad. Let's continue.
For Rainmaker, but also the industry writ large.
Do you want your videos to look like this? Well, in just 14 days, we've taught all these people how to do it. Our program, 14 days.
What does success look like?
I think that when you speak in terms of decadal plans, it's really more visionary than it is like specific outcome, because things are subject to move up and down by a few years. But what I will say is success case number one, first thing that we have to do is produce enough water to stabilize our agricultural, ecological, and industrial consumption. Right now, the city of Phoenix is banning new housing development and turning off water in some of their housing developments because there's not enough there. The Central Valley of California explicitly anticipates for 500,000 acres of farmland to turn into desert by 2030. That's the first thing that we have to avoid. And I think it's something that we can do in the next 5 years. Then in the next 10 years, but really over the course of my life, the winning condition for Rainmaker and for cloud seeding is to have extended the Great Plains from West Texas through New Mexico, Arizona, and then connect them to Southern California. So that all becomes a vibrant, lush breadbasket like it never was before. And
there you go. That's your evidence as to what's going on. So let me just back it up. This is the visionary goal. I'm not making this stuff up. He said it. Let's just play it back again. You want to know why you're being flooded out in Texas? Here's why.
In the next 10 years, but really over the course of my life, the winning condition for Rainmaker and for cloud seeding is to have extended the Great Plains from West Texas through New Mexico, Arizona, and then connect them to Southern California. So that all becomes a vibrant, lush breadbasket like it never was before.
Okay, so luscious breadbasket. So basically meaning their winning goal is to terraform from Texas all the way to California and make that a breadbasket for an Eden. Now, he didn't say Eden, but for countries to salivate and go, look at what they did from Texas all the way to California. The place is lush. It's green. Look at that. Yeah, I know 10 years ago that whole area got flooded. But now look at all the new trees that they planted, new crops that they're growing now. Look at the buildings that they built. Like, it's beautiful today. They did an amazing job, and they only lost a few 100,000 people. That is amazing. Wow. They only displaced millions of people. But look at it today. That's beautiful. Can you do that in our country? Could you do that in Africa? Can you make all of Africa luscious when it comes to green? I'm telling you, this is what they want. And they want to be able to have leverage to turn off the water or on. That's the secondary goal of this vision. Because if you could control the water, you could control the world. Meaning, you don't have water for 3 days. You'll do anything to get that water supply turned on, because otherwise you're going to get sick and die. That's a lot of power. It's not about wars anymore, as in moving tanks in, bazookas, all this kind of stuff. It's war over water, the technology to make it rain. That's what this whole thing is about. And you're seeing it from this guy who's, again, at the tippity top of the food chain when it comes to weather modification programs. And he's being paid at the state level. And he says, look, like, this is a big operation here. There's a lot of money switching hands.
And then number 3 is tuning the weather to our liking for symbiotic flourishing between both human civilization and creation writ large. And that gets into other modes of atmospheric engineering, like hail suppression, for example.
You know, the work that you and the team are doing is really focused on unlocking the next wave, perhaps, of economic growth within the U.S. by allowing, pieces of land, terrain that historically might not have been arable to kind of flourish and thrive. So is that a good way to put it, or how would you put it?
You're on the money. I think that there are a few fundamental primitives in all industrial production and economic activity. And those boil down to something like human capital, intelligence, energy, water, critical minerals. Water is one that nobody ever talks about because historically there's been no means to produce more of it. Cloud seeding is the way that you can produce more of it in all of these inland areas where desalination is not an option.
Cloud seeding is not necessarily a kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul situation, right? Or is it?
You've read up on the matter, because that's a very common turn of phrase in cloud seeding debates. Yeah, so there's a few points of scrutiny or skepticism that I think are appropriate to give cloud seeding that conventionally come up. So the first one is, are you robbing Peter to pay Paul? If you make it rain more over here, will it rain less over there? If you seed clouds in California, will it rain less in Nevada? And the answer is, if you target the right clouds, then resoundingly no. Over 90% of all of the liquid and ice phase water that traverses the United States atmosphere just gets recycled by the oceans, right? So we are not tapping even 10% of all the water right over our heads that we could bring down that would be purely positive sum if you select for the right cloud conditions. Atmospheric rivers are these huge phenomena that blow in from the Pacific that have 10 times the flux of the Mississippi River that blow from the Pacific over the entire interior of the country, Rocky Mountains, Midwest.
So this has been my whole argument, or a big part of it is, you're saying precipitation blows in from the Pacific. I'm saying precipitation blows in from the Gulf, and you knew about it. You were receding 130 miles, 100 miles, 130 miles, 150 miles southeast of Kerr County, and you knew precipitation was coming in because Tropical Storm Barry just moved through the southern region, and it draws in precipitation. And you knew that because you have models that tell you that from the Pacific, the same thing happens. And it's interesting that after Barry moved through the southern parts, you started cloud seeding in your 10 counties that you were hired to help fill the aquifers. And you knew that that precipitation is coming in. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's important that this guy's not a dummy. He's not an idiot. He has done his homework. He's only 25, folks. 25 years old. This could be your version of Elon Musk in the near future. This could be your Elon Musk over water. Elon Musk obviously is from South Africa. Obviously, he lives in the States or wherever he lives. I forget where he lives now. But this is your new future Elon Musk, and he's been groomed by Peter Thiel, who used to be a partner with Elon Musk. Created OpenAI together. Created PayPal together. I should say Peter Thiel did not create OpenAI. Elon Musk did with another guy. But Peter Thiel and Elon Musk have their hands all over America. It's shocking how powerful these guys are. They have Thiel people that fund organizations like this. And this guy's also he also funds Augustus as well. He's pretending he's interviewing him, but he's one of the people that are actually donating or actually funding this company. Let's continue.
Etc. And you're not even getting 20% of that water that's immediately over your head. Cloud seeding is the way that we can tap into those and get positive sum water production in the Western United States and otherwise. So are you robbing Peter to pay Paul? No evidence to suggest that. We're specifically targeting clouds to do positive sum water production. But another conventional point of scrutiny is, what are you dispersing over my head? What is silver iodide? Is this stuff even safe? Silver iodide is the material that we use in cloud seeding. Its crystalline structure is almost identical to ice, which is why water favorably freezes onto it into big snowflakes that then fall. We use about 50 grams per operation over about 1 million acres at a time, if not more. The concentrations that exist in the soil or in the water are in the parts per trillion, so about 1 million times less than what's even naturally occurring in American soil. There have never been found any adverse ecological consequences, agricultural consequences, human health consequences from cloud seeding with silver iodide. And so it's resoundingly safe to use this material.
Augustus, thanks so much for joining and a really cool foundational piece of technology.
So silver iodide is poisonous. He's suggesting that it's being dispersed, but if you were to give him some silver iodide, it would be fatal. It would be fatal. So you could almost say lethal doses are being released into the atmosphere. Yes, you're not eating this stuff. Yes. But this is harmful stuff. Harmful. It has to go somewhere. The silver has to go somewhere. It just doesn't evaporate. It drops into the soil. It's not harmful to crops today But they're not worried about the crops today because there's going to be a river over your land one day in the future. China dumps about 500 tons of silver over China a year. 500 tons. So the U.S. is nowhere near it. This is why, most likely, why China is investing heavily into silver, buying it all up, because they're trying to modify their entire country. It's a war. So you want to see silver prices go up. I could see silver prices going up because of this as well. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Okay, let's go into like today it's not affecting, but it's the same thing with Chernobyl. Opening up a nuclear reactor in Ukraine. Hey, this is not going to harm our soil. We did soil samples all around Chernobyl. There's nothing wrong here until it collapses. Then you can't live there anymore. You can't farm in that soil anymore. So I think this is where we're actually headed. Right now, they're not concerned because it's so minute. It's going to be very difficult, not impossible. If you find the right lab, you can trace this stuff. You can check out your farmland. You can say, hey, were they seeding? But it's actually easier to subscribe to like Flight Radar. I think it's also free as well to track all these planes around your area. And you could figure out quickly who's who. You could figure out who's seeding, when, where, why, all this kind of stuff. Anyways, let's go over to Sean Ryan had Augustus on about, when was it? A month ago. And then he brought him back on because there's so much controversy going on right now with Augustus. Like there's so much. Everybody's going after him now. Let me see if I could show this here. Let me see. Oh, yeah. Okay, I showed that video. So let me show this interview because I think this is important to document this stuff. Let's see. Where is it? Right here. Okay. Go here. All right. So we're going to go to an interview that Sean Ryan had just a few days ago. When was it? 2 days ago. An interview with Augustus Torrico from Rainmaker because he's getting a lot of heat. He's getting a lot of death threats now. People are wanting him to answer for his crimes that he says he never committed. Now, I'm not trying to get this guy into trouble. That's not my goal. My goal is to explain what the heck he's talking about. And then if there's a contradiction in what he's saying, I flip through the notes and go, wait a second here. You said you dumped 60 grams of silver. Now today you're saying 70. And yet in this interview, you're saying the average is 50. So why did you, if it's only 20 minutes, why did you go above average? Why did you dump 70 grams of silver iodide? Why not 50? Because that's your average. And you use 3 drones for that purpose. That's your average operation. 50 grams of silver iodide with 3 drones, but you decided to up it to 70 grams with a plane for 20 minutes. What gives? Why would you do that? If you know precipitation's coming in and Kerr County is going to be flooded and their lakes, their man-made lakes are already full. Their soil is highly saturated already. Or you're not paying attention to the counties around you. And if you're not paying attention to the counties around you, you're now being negligent. So you're kind of in trouble. All right. So let's go back over to this. Oh, let's bring it up first, shall we? Hopefully this is educational in nature, not conspiracy driven. I'm really trying to get to the bottom of this. I don't think there is a bottom, personally. I think this rabbit hole goes really deep.
Augusta Storco, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, Sean.
Didn't expect to see you again so soon.
It was quite the timing. Yeah,
man. So, massive flood tragedy in Texas. You were there cloud seeding before. And so I know you're getting blasted on the internet. People are fucking irate, what's going on. And but I pride myself on giving everybody a voice. And so I wanted to offer you the opportunity to come back and talk about what's going down on there. So quick introduction and some stats on what's happened last week. Augusta Storco, founder and CEO of Rainmaker, a next generation cloud seeding company. Your name popped up in the news last week, obviously, because of the Texas floods and the cloud seeding stuff. And so, like I said, I just want to bring you on, give you the opportunity to speak to the public, my audience, about what was going on there. But let's take a moment here to recognize the scale of the tragedy. Killed at least 120 people and left at least 176 missing, notably 27 girls and one counselor from Camp Mystic, a Christian summer camp, were killed. And I just want to say that, every time something like this happens, me and my organization, we like to donate. And so we're making a sizable donation. We did some research and found a nonprofit to donate to. So we're donating to the relief efforts through the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill County Country in the show. And we'll link that link in the show notes for anybody else that wants to donate, including you, if you want to donate to it.
Rainmaker will do the same.
Perfect. And some facts about the flooding. Texas Hill Country, along the Guadalupe River, heavy rainfall from Tropical Storm Barry, unprecedented flooding. Between July 4th through 7th, 5 to 11 inches of rain fell in a few hours, leading to the Guadalupe River rising 26 to 29 feet in some areas within 45 minutes. Among the deadliest in the U.S. in a century, it's destroyed homes, camps, infrastructure, killed a lot of people still missing that they're looking for. The tragedy centered in Flash Flood Alley underscored the region's vulnerability to such events, with historic floods that also happened in 1987, 1998, and 2015 as precedents. And I also want to take a moment and just recognize a lot of the heroic actions that were going on there. Extensive rescue operations involving over 850 rescues. One Coast Guard crew made 165 rescues, and first responders and everyday Americans stepped up to save their neighbors. So, I don't know how to say this, but when things like this happen, it's good to see how many Americans step up. We saw it in Hurricane Helene. We saw it in the wildfires. We're seeing it here. I mean, it's good to see Americans. I mean, we live in a very divisive society now, and it's good to see people step up in their community and come together to help those in need in these tragic events. So, so I know you were there. I think it was 2 days prior to the flood, correct?
Correct.
And what were you doing there?
Sure. So just again, for those that haven't heard before about what cloud seeding is, in no uncertain terms, I run a cloud seeding company. We make a little bit more rain and snow for farms or for reservoirs or for aquifers when they're dealing with drought, right? Obviously, right now, after the flooding, Texas does not need more water, and we've indefinitely suspended operations because of that, and we'll keep them suspended until first responders have stopped working. Cloud seeding is not long streaks in the sky. It's not trying to dim out the sun. It's certainly not creating hurricanes. Cloud seeding is a technology that was invented in the US that relies on clouds, natural clouds with liquid water droplets in them, and flying into those clouds, dispersing material that then freezes onto those drops, makes big enough, heavy enough snowflakes such that they fall and either fall as snow or melt back into rain. We have customers throughout Texas, the South Texas Weather Modification Association, the West Texas Weather Modification Association. These are groups of counties and individual farms that pay us for cloud seeding because they historically have needed more water, right? If you look even back to June 24th, not long ago, a lot of Texas, a lot of the hill country was in severe or moderate drought. Right. And so what we were doing there on July 2nd and prior was trying to make more rain for these farms and for these reservoirs and to recharge the aquifer because they tend to need more water. We were operating on the set.
You know, it's good to pay attention to the comments. I had full screen and I didn't realize my mic was off. Okay. So I'm not going to say the whole thing because I can't remember what I just said. Probably you guys are just like, what is this guy saying? He just finished saying that he got hired by South Texas. He also South Texas Association. He also works for West Texas Association. Later, he's going to be asked by Ryan, "Hey, were you in New Mexico before the flood?" And he's like, "Yes, But just because I'm there before the flood doesn't mean I make the flood happen, because there was no flood. So how could I make a flood happen if there's no flood before I get there? Because that's what the word before means. Before means before something. So I wasn't at the flood during the flood. I was before the flood. So you can't blame me. I wasn't seeding over Kerr County, so I didn't cause Kerr to be flooded. I wasn't there. You see how this becomes circular? So he's now explaining who paid him and where he was on July 2nd. And you got to ask yourself the question. You got to sit down, take your shoes and socks off, and you got to ask yourself this question. We got a timeline here. July 4th, 1 a.m. I know because I saw the reports at 1 a.m. saying, too late, flood, imminent, 20 feet, 25, 30 feet, flash flood. Wait for the helicopters to come and pick you up because it's too late, basically. It's too late. When you get that warning that homes are being washed away, it's too late. Junction Highway is flooded. You can't get out because it's all along the Guadalupe River. Guadalupe River. It's all along there. Junction Highway. So there's like one way in, one way out. So ask yourself the question. I would ask myself this question. Let's just say, we know that there's a flood coming. July 4th. In hindsight, we know. Does it make reasonable sense that if you knew on July 2nd that there was a flood coming, that you're going to let somebody know? Or are you that cold of a bee? I was going to say the B word. A fatherless child. I was going to use the B word on you, but I won't do it. I'll restrain. What kind of a cold-hearted B word would say, I'm packing up my crap, folding up my drone, folding up my plane, and I'm going home? What kind of a cold-hearted person would you be knowing that there's a flood coming and you knew about it, but you didn't tell anyone? Your meteorologist knew something that no one else in the world knew, but you knew on July 2nd. Is that what you're saying, Augustus? Are you saying that you knew before the National Weather Report came out on July 4th or July 3rd at 1 p.m., like you said, 1 p.m. in the morning on July 3rd? And I would suggest that that is inaccurate because I looked everywhere. The first time I saw a potential flash flood warning was on July 3rd at about 1 p.m. saying that there could be flash flood. Probable. Not saying it's going to happen, but most likely, and it's not anything. This is flash flood alley. This is not out of the range of normal. That was at 1 on July 3rd. 1 a.m. July 4th, it's over. Flood imminent, 20-foot swells, 30-foot, 35-foot swells. So we're going to listen to him say where he was and how he knew. So ask yourself that question. If you knew, what time did you know? And why did you know and no one else knew on July 3rd? And why was there no reporting on July 4th? This is what everybody misses. There was no reporting on the morning of July 4th. Nothing. Zero. You can't find it. All footage, all weather reports start to show up on Saturday, July 5th, where reporters are at the scene of the crime saying, wow, this just came in at about 1 o'clock to 4 a.m. July 4th, and this is horrible, and we're right here, and you can see the rain is starting to diminish, and they're like, but when you look at the timestamp, you're like, this is July 5th. Why weren't you there July 4th? Because you didn't know what was happening. You didn't know that people were dying on your watch. You had no idea. Because I watched a lot of the footage on July 4th. I just coincidentally happened to be watching some stuff. Because on July 2nd, I said there's a black swan happening in the United States, and I was focused on Washington. I thought something was going to happen there. And as I'm watching news and different things, they're like, hey, we're getting ready for July 4th. We're having a big festival tonight. This is in Texas. Yeah, rains are coming, but hopefully the rains will subside, and we're going to have a great festival. These are people around Kerr County saying this, that today is going to be magnificent. On July 4th, we're going to have great fireworks tonight and all this. And I'm like, wait a minute. Your town is buried in flooding. As in 4 hours ago, 6 hours ago, and you're not reporting it. You're talking about the fireworks on July 4th. You didn't know? July 5th, now you're pretending you knew? And look at all the timestamps on YouTube. July 5th, July 5th, July 5th, July 5th, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. They're trying to get you to assume that this was happening that they were reporting this on July 4th. And I'm telling you, the easiest way to trace this is to look on July 4th. Any news related to the flood, you're going to see it show up as July 5th because you can't hide the timestamps of when it was uploaded. You're not going to see anything on July 4th. Zero. There's no media coverage about flooding, about people dying, Mystic Camp being swept away on July 4th. They started reporting it on July 5th, saying that they're reporting July 4th. And if you're not looking at the upload date, you're going to think that they were right there hours after it started flooding. You're going to go, oh, wow, these guys are on it. Thank you for reporting this. But you didn't get it Friday morning. Otherwise, your phone would have just blew up and everything. Everybody's like panicked on July 4th at 4 o'clock in the morning. But they had power outages. They couldn't communicate. They couldn't call 911. Nothing from 1 to like 4 a.m. And then 5 a.m. it's like starting to crescent, starting to go down. That was all happening July 4th, and we didn't hear about it. Got to ask yourself the reason why. And how did this guy know on July 2nd that was going to happen arguably 24 to 36 hours later? Gets me upset at this kind of stuff. All right. Let's play it. Let's play it.
Second. And we flew one 20-minute cloud seeding mission. So we seeded 2 clouds, and we dispersed 70 grams of silver iodide into those clouds. First of all, those clouds dissipated over the course of the 2 hours after the mission, right? So did we seed the storm itself? No, absolutely not. Did we seed clouds that dumped tons of precipitation? No, not that either. Like the most successful cloud seeding missions that have ever been conducted either by Rainmaker or research labs have produced tens of millions of gallons of precipitation. They got hundreds of billions of gallons of precipitation over the course of just hours and trillions cumulatively. So cloud seeding, though it can make useful amounts of water for these farms and ecosystems, cannot produce a million times more than what the best operations ever have. So that's the first thing to say. The second thing to say is, well, maybe because you seeded those 2 clouds on the 2nd, the material stayed in the atmosphere and then made the flooding worse later. And we know categorically that that's not true either. When you seed into clouds and there's subsequent precipitation, the material that you disperse gets precipitated out with the rain, right? So 1, we know that by seeding into the clouds, the aerosol dissipated. But 2, even if we had just been seeding into open air, and we weren't, right? It was 20 plus hours between when our mission occurred and when the flooding ensued. And the winds were blowing northwest such that any of
Okay, this is the nail on the coffin. This is I'll back it up a little bit, but I think you have to pay attention, take notes, whatever it is, write it down. He's seeding on July 2nd. He knows that there is precipitation coming in. He knows that there is winds moving northwest. The trajectory is moving northwest. The storm is coming southeast into Kerr. He knows there's a storm moving, or the winds are, the prevailing winds are heading northwest. So if you put anything into those clouds, it's going to move northwest. It's going to move in that direction. That common sense would dictate that's what's going to happen. So watch how he articulates what was going on here, and watch Ryan actually catching on to this, and listen for the question, do you know, or do you think this is what happened? Do you think 100% of it dissipated? And I'm not going to argue with Augustus in regards to how silver iodide works. Gathers water droplets, and once it gets heavy, it drops. No argument there whatsoever. That's what silver iodide does. That's not what we're trying to say. What we're asking is there a chance that some silver iodide didn't activate, and is it possible that it drifts in the wind until it hits the right temperature and activates? Because there are records that they could miss if the right conditions are not met. Meaning, if it's too hot, you could dump an aerosol into the air and the winds are going to drag it 50 miles, 100 miles, 500 miles if it's too warm. If there's no clouds and you disperse this aerosol into the air and there's high winds, it's just going to move it over to somewhere else and it'll just dump if it hits a cloud somewhere else. That is scientific fact. Some particles, some iodide silver, some of it will not activate. They know this. Otherwise, they would seed anytime. They say, no, if we seed without a cloud, it's just going to drift. And it doesn't work then. We need a cloud with precipitation. And then when we launch it, it rains. So what he's saying is he cloud seeded for 20 minutes and it dispersed the clouds. That's not true. That's not how their company works. They're looking for rain clouds. How do we know this? His meteorologist will radio him and say, look, there is potential cloud covering over this region. It's beautiful. It's sexy. Get your plane up there. Seed it. We got rain coming. They don't look at empty clouds that are like nothing there. It's just dispersing. That's not what they do. They look for clouds that have rain in it already, that is just not heavy enough for it to fall. And once they find it through their meteorologist, it's go time, and success equals deployment into the cloud. He just said, we want to get paid for success. I just told you, I just showed you. If you fill this up, you get paid. That's what he said. I would rather get paid that. We're close to that because we're so confident that we could prove that when we release the silver iodide into the cloud, it's going to make it rain. It's not, if it disperses a cloud and no rain, he doesn't get paid. He gets paid to make it rain. Now he's saying that all they did was disperse a cloud, and I'm calling him on it. I think that is the biggest BS / bologna sandwich that you can come up with. So I'm just going to back it up and I'm going to let him speak.
You know, maybe because you seeded those two clouds on the second, the material stayed in the atmosphere and then made the flooding worse later. And we know categorically that that's not true either. When you seed into clouds and there's subsequent precipitation, the material that you disperse gets precipitated out with the rain, right? So one, we know that by seeding into the clouds, the aerosol dissipated. But two, even if we had just been seeding into open air, and we weren't, right? It was 20 plus hours between when our mission occurred and when the flooding ensued. And the winds were blowing northwest such that any of our aerosols would have been long and far north had they even.
Of course,
this game, you're not ready.
Persisted in the atmosphere, and they didn't. So one, we know that by seeding into the clouds, the aerosol dissipated. But two, even if we had just been seeding into open air, and we weren't, right? It was 20 plus hours between when our mission occurred and when the flooding ensued. And the winds were blowing northwest such that any of our aerosols would have been long and far north had they even persisted in the atmosphere, and they didn't.
Hold on, let's rewind.
Yeah.
What were you saying about, what was that last thing?
About the aerosols up there. So one thing,
the wind.
Yeah. So the winds when we were seeding were blowing to the northwest, right? In the ensuing days, right, you had the storm just plop down and pound this one particular area.
Mhm.
But when we were seeding, the winds were going northwest such that any of the aerosols that could have possibly remained in the atmosphere, and I don't think that any consequential amount did, they would have blown out of the direction of the storm as well.
You don't think, or you know?
We know.
Did you see those clouds dissipate?
Yes.
Do you have that on video?
We have that on radar.
You have that on radar. Have you released that information?
Yeah, we posted that online.
You did.
Mm-hmm.
And you were operating, I believe, was it southwest of?
It was about 100 miles southeast.
100 miles southeast.
Mm-hmm.
And the wind was blowing which way?
It was blowing northwest.
It was blowing northwest, so it would have been in the direction of that storm from your location.
Correct. However, one, it was 70 grams of silver iodide.
Mm-hmm.
That amount of particulate dispersed over hours would have been lower in concentration than just the natural amount of dust that gets kicked up from the soil, right? It could not have any impact because of those concentrations. And the notion that, like, by seeding, could we have worsened the storm somehow because we created a low pressure system? Like, I think a lot of people, and I'm not one to always defer to experts, right? Like, I think that people should trust but verify. The notion that any sort of seeding operation then could have worsened the remnants of the tropical storm and then the convergence of a system from the Pacific is like totally impossible. And you can defer to other atmospheric scientists that have brought this up and corroborated it, not from Rainmaker. You can defer to other meteorologists. You can even defer to the Texas Department of Agriculture commissioner that dispelled any rumors about cloud seeding having to do with this.
Who hired you to go down there?
The South Texas Weather Modification Association. So that's a bunch of counties and farms that need more water.
Okay. Did they, I mean, when you're seeding clouds, I mean, what's the radius of where you're doing it from? I mean, how many miles out are you guys looking at weather?
We're looking at, well, for forecasting, this is an important point, right? We're looking at the entire region, just so that we understand the situation. Even if we're only seeding over a handful of counties, we want to understand the context. And
this is, I think he's getting himself into more trouble now, because now he's saying that they're aware of other counties, not just where we're seeding, we're aware of the entire region. That's important. And you're going to hear him start to go, oh my goodness gracious, great balls of fire, I could be perjuring myself because I just realized how many freaking interviews I've been doing for the last week, and Black Swan Revelations keeps documenting all these videos, and now I got to get my story right. You know what? I don't want to perjure myself, so I'm not going to say anything. Watch him go down this road. He's starting to think, I could get perjured. I could be convicted of perjury, lying about my operation. So now I'm in trouble. Now I'm in trouble. And hopefully Ryan doesn't ask me, would I go before a board and answer any questions? Hopefully Ryan doesn't ask me that, please, because I'm going to be guilty of perjury because I'm lying through my teeth to cover something else up. And it could appear that I could be the fall guy. And I'm just realizing this out loud. Crap. I'm the fall guy? What? I thought I was pals with everybody. Now they're taking me out? I got to start backing up all my data and stuff because they're going to take me out of this. They're going to take my company out. They're going to bury me alive and make me the scapegoat. Watch. I'm telling you, you think I'm making this stuff up as I go. Watch his own words. Watch him wrestle with what he's saying and listen for the word perjury. Just back it up a little bit.
Okay. Did they, I mean, when you're seeding clouds, I mean, what's the radius of where you're doing it from? I mean, how many miles out are you guys looking at weather?
We're looking at, well, for forecasting, this is an important point, right? We're looking at the entire region, just so that we understand the situation. Even if we're only seeding over a handful of counties, we want to understand the context. And it's important to do that because on the 2nd, our meteorologists identified that there was this inflow of moisture from the Gulf. And that's why we suspended operations the afternoon of the 2nd. Now, that's important because, one, that's like, Rainmaker wants to do no harm and did no harm. And by proactively forecasting so that we know we're not seeding during storms or during flash floods, like we can prevent ourselves from doing any damage, right?
So the question I would ask is, did you seed and then your meteorologist said success? You're done? Or were you about to seed and then you got a storm warning? I would suggest it was the earlier. You seeded, you were done. Your meteorologist said, good job. We now see the effects. The Gulf is bringing in precipitation. There's a few clouds forming. You seeded properly. You're done. Go home. Their own personal meteorologist. It does not help you in Texas to go to a meteorologist and ask the question, did cloud seeding cause the flood in Kerr? They'll say no. Why? Because they have a mummified order to not say anything about state-funded cloud seeding organizations or they will lose their job. So the meteorologists, they're not in on the take, but they can't speak about it. Otherwise, they'll lose their job. So you can't go, like Augusta said, just ask any meteorologists. Well, they can't say. If they come against it, they're coming against the people that are paying them to look at radars. And it's going to be a conflict of interest. So they can't say it. So that doesn't help to go to meteorologists. You can't go to Augusta's meteorologist, his personal meteorologist, and say, does cloud seeding cause storms? No, because he's biased. He's in on the take. He gets paid by Augustus. So now we're starting to get to the end. And I did hint at the idea that Ryan actually asked him, would you go before a hearing? And you'll be shocked at what Augustus says. This is coming up. I'm telling you, you want to get some popcorn out, because I don't want to say this is entertaining, but it's almost like if you were a lawyer for Kerr County, this is too good to be true. This is too good to be true, but because he's going to cough up some gold. He's going to sing like a canary. And I think he's realizing that he's going to be the fall guy. He's going to be the scapegoat. And he's starting to say things like, I don't want to perjure myself. So he's thinking about court. He's thinking about a judicial hearing, if that's the right way to say it. I picture him, what's today, Monday? Give it a week. And he's going to be before a hearing And they're going to be peppering him with questions, asking him, where were you in New Mexico and what date? Where were you on July 2nd? And the flight log that I've seen says he was flying at 6 o'clock at night. He says he was flying at 1 p.m. That's a big discrepancy because now you're 5 hours away from a flood warning, according to you. So it looks bad. So what I'm predicting as a black swan is this guy's going to be before a hearing to defend his company because they're going to go after him to ask him questions. And if he cracks, his company is going to be held liable to pay for all the rebuilding, blah, 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 all that stuff of Kerr County and all the affected states. And this is going to set a precedent for what happens to anything that happened after with cloud seeding companies. And there could be a potential ban in Texas, although I don't think it could happen, but so much money involved. I think you're actually witnessing, this is the center of the hurricane right now. You're actually witnessing this live right now, and I'm telling you what's going to happen down the road. So pay attention to this.
But it's also important because a lot of people have said, well, you know, who even is regulating you guys? Who even is giving you permission to do this? And it's worth saying the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation has permits for weather modification and cloud seeding operations. They have for decades. Cloud seeding isn't a new technology, right? Only recently have people been able to measure what the effects of it are with new radar tech, but it's not new. The states have regulations. The states have to grant you permits if they approve your concept of operations, and also if they approve your suspension criteria. And so that is maybe one of the most important parts here. Suspension criteria are basically the weather conditions or conditions on the ground that would result in us being required to stop operating. And so one of the suspension criteria is if the National Weather Service issues a flash flood warning. The National Weather Service issued a flash flood warning at about 1 a.m. on the 3rd.
Okay. The National Weather Service, that's the company I was trying to figure out. So if I was a lawyer against this guy, I'd be like, okay, let me get this right. You're seeding July 2nd. Is that correct, sir? What time? About 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. Flight log says 6 p.m. Yeah, that's wrong. Okay. Never mind. Okay. So you say 1 o'clock. Okay. July 2nd. When did the National Weather Services issue a warning? July 3rd at 1 a.m. So 1 in the morning when everyone is asleep, they issue a flood warning, and you stopped operations because of that warning at 1 o'clock? Yes, because the regulations say we're not supposed to fly and do anything, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but go with me here. Did you seed before that flood warning? Yes, we did, but we stopped. Did you stop because you ran out of silver and you finished your mission? Yeah, but we saw the flood warning at 1 o'clock in the morning. Okay, slow down, cowboy. Slow down. You just said that you saw a warning on July 3rd. You just said it at 1 a.m. and you stopped operations. Does that mean that you're operating until 1 a.m.? Well, no. We had stopped already hours, days before. Why did you stop? Why did you stop? If the first warning of a potential flood came on July 3rd at 1 a.m., why did you stop before? Well, our meteorologist told us that there was an imminent warning way before the National Weather Services. Crap! I just perjured myself. Crap! This is all falling apart. It's all falling apart. Okay, let me back up. Enough humor. Let's back up a bit.
Regulating you guys. Who even is giving you permission to do this? And it's worth saying the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation has permits for weather modification and cloud seeding operations. They have for decades. Cloud seeding isn't a new technology, right? Only recently have people been able to measure what the effects of it are with new radar tech, but it's not new. The states have regulations. The states have to grant you permits if they approve your concept of operations, and also if they approve your suspension criteria. And so that is maybe one of the most important parts here. Suspension criteria are basically the weather conditions or conditions on the ground that would result in us being required to stop operating. And so one of the suspension criteria is if the National Weather Service issues a flash flood warning. The National Weather Service issued a flash flood warning at about 1 a.m. on the 3rd, right? We suspended operations on the 2nd. We proactively suspended operations even before we were notified to by the National Weather Service or before we would have been required to by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. So not only did we adhere to the rules, but we proactively stopped long before we needed to because our meteorologists were able to see that there was impending risk.
Bam.
I mean, I had a handful of friends reach out to me after the flood had happened, and all of the questions were exactly the same. Did Augusta Historico cause this? And I'm not a scientist.
Hey, stop playing with your fanny pack. You need the Bearskin Tactical Hoodie 4.0 to get.
I don't know. And, all I know is what I learned in our interview together. And this was, I kind of expressed this in the interview. This is what everybody is scared to death of, is of something like this happening. But, going back to your interview, I mean, if I remember correctly, you said the window of opportunity for it to rain after you see the cloud is 15 to 45 minutes, correct?
Max 2 hours, but generally within the hour. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't see a small, medium-sized drone being able to create, that much devastation. How many drones were you guys using?
So in Texas, we use airplanes, not drones.
Used airplanes.
We use airplanes. However,
Bam.
right, these airplanes are like 6-seater aircraft. They're not the high-altitude jetliners or stuff. That's worth saying because I think a lot of people hear about cloud seeding. They'll look up and see these trails in the sky. They'll think that that's cloud seeding. That's not cloud seeding, right? Whether you believe that those long trails in the sky are condensation trails or chemtrails, and I don't think that they are chemtrails. I haven't seen evidence for it. A lot of people have sent me the movie The Dimming. Have you heard of this?
No, I've not seen it.
There's
Nobody asked you about chemtrails. You keep bringing up chemtrails. Nobody asked you. So now you're talking about a movie about dimming the sun and all this stuff, and I might watch that movie, by the way. But you're creating a straw man argument. You're like, what kind of drones did you use? I didn't use drones. We use planes, but they're small planes. And you ever hear about those the chemtrails? The conspiracies about the chemtrails. You ever hear about there's a movie about that. It's kind of weird. Anyways, what was the question? What were you asking me? It's getting hot in here. Ooh, I'm out of water. Could you turn the temperature down? Because I'm feeling a little bit of heat. Here.
There's this piece on geoengineering and the risks of solar radiation modification and potentially chemtrails that a lot of people have sent to me. I'm not compelled by that evidence, frankly. Anyway, all that to say, I am totally open-minded to the notion that there could be nefarious stuff from state actors. We know that China is investing $1.4 billion into their weather modification program. As of our last conversation, it was $300 million. They just ramped it up to 1.4 billion per year.
Wow, China.
So we do know that they're interested in that. We do know that the Chinese are interested in that. I don't believe that any of those contrails are in fact chemtrails, but these airplanes were flying at, this one airplane, to be clear, was flying at 1,600 feet above ground level. So another important detail is the altitude where we were flying means that those particulate fell.
It seems like the weight of it would I mean, they wouldn't be able to travel that far. 1,600 feet. That's just not that high.
Exactly.
But have you seen this video that Nicole Shanahan put?
What about 2,500 feet? Augustus? What do you mean, Shane? 2,500 feet. Well, Augustus, you said a couple of days ago you flew 2,500 feet. Would 1,000 meters make a difference? You originally said 60 grams. Why 70 grams when in another interview you said 50 is the average? If it's only going to be 20 minutes and all you're doing is dispersing these clouds, why are you using 70? Why not use drones? Oh, because drones aren't as effective as a plane. But you said it was only 20 minutes. And you said 70 millimeters, but your average is 50 silver iodide grams. Why 70? Why going over? Why go above average? Why use a plane that only flies 1,600 feet? That's what drones do. Your planes go as high as 7,000 feet. I know. I've done my homework. This is not adding up, folks. Yeah, have you read the Bible, Augustus? All right, let's go.
Put out by chance. Jeremy, can you roll that real quick? I just want to get your reaction to this. And
hey, everybody. So EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin announced today that his agency will finally release detailed information on geoengineering. If you followed me for a while, you know this is something I care deeply about. So this feels like the right moment to share. I have been speaking with a whistleblower over the past several weeks who has helped me really understand what's happening in our skies. They have given me information that could shed real light on these programs, who's behind them, where the funding's coming from, and what we can do to stop them. I'll be posting an article on my X feed later today, so please stay tuned.
what do you think she's talking about with this whistleblower? I mean, we obviously know who's behind it. Where does the funding come from? Funding comes from the Texas Weather Modification, whatever group that you were talking about, correct?
So note, she said geoengineering. I don't do geoengineering. I do weather modification. And that
bullcrap. Geoengineering is weather modification. Now he's trying to separate, and this is where he's going to get himself into trouble. Geoengineering modifies the weather using chemicals or whatever that's not naturally found in the clouds to make it rain. That's geoengineering. You're manipulating. Now, he's going to go into a different realm. He's going to say, no, we're not on a global scale. We're not trying to change the globe. Don't you know? Ryan, that's so silly. We're little tiny. We're just operating in little tiny Texas. Just little tiny droplets of rain. That's all we're doing here. But geoengineering is global. It's out in the stratosphere. It's space. It's doing all kinds of stuff. It's coming. Here it comes. Ready for it? Here comes the explanation of why they don't do geoengineering. All we do is weather modification. It's the same thing.
That difference is really important. Cloud seeding is a kind of weather modification, and it's weather modification because it's local in both time and space, right? Like it affects an individual county over the course of hours. Geoengineering is a global climate intervention, like dimming the sun, that is aimed at cooling the entire planet down, where the aerosols dispersed into the stratosphere would persist for years. The funding for our cloud seeding operations come from these counties and farms that we work with. The federal government spent $2.4 million on cloud seeding research last year, and that was all that they'd spent in years since. We don't do any work with the federal government. If we do, I'll be happy to tell people about that. With respect to geoengineering, I'm interested to see what she says. The statement that Lee Zeldin gave I think yesterday, on transparently accounting for what contrails are, what geoengineering activities exist. I think that is absolutely a step in the right direction. Like,
this guy is spitting out names like crazy, like he is a canary in a coal mine. If you squeeze this guy, he's going to sing a cappella. A cappella. He's going to sing. He's a canary in a coal mine. I think if he doesn't make a deal, he's going to be the scapegoat, is what I feel, because this whistleblower is going to come out with something and say, look, I know who's paying Rainmaker, and you better be sitting down for this. What's interesting, and I'm doing a bit of a deep dive. I don't know if you guys know who Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate is. I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive on these guys because they like guys like Augustus. So it wouldn't shock me if Tristan Tate invested in this company as well. That could come up down the works because he likes crypto and all this kind of stuff. It wouldn't shock me if Peter Thiel. It wouldn't shock me. Actually, I know this. This is 100% truth. Amazon also divvies out money. Now, I can't recall offhand if it was for Rainmaker specifically. I have a feeling it's to Rainmaker specifically. But I know they invest money into companies that are doing cloud seeding. This is Amazon, Jeff Bezos. And I'm pretty sure, because I don't like to throw out stuff and make it up. I'm pretty sure I read an article or I read a post that Augustus said that Jeff Bezos is investing in our company. I'm pretty sure I saw that somewhere. So you got Amazon, you got Peter Thiel, probably Elon Musk is somewhere in there. I'm sure of it somewhere, especially if you're talking about AI driven stuff, drones, all this stuff, I'm sure. Could Zelensky be a part of this? Could Ukraine invest in this type of technology? I would suspect, if I were to take a guess and go out on a ledge, I would say Ukraine is supporting Rainmaker. That's purely a guess. Purely a guess. Why would I say such a thing? Why would I accuse Zelensky? Because I know Ukraine makes deals under the table all the time. They're one of the reputation was being the most corrupt out of any country on the planet. Ukraine has been on record, or Zelensky has been on record to say, thank goodness we don't have any evil parties using weather manipulation as weapons. Zelensky said this at a speech. So Ukraine is aware that there are organizations that use weather modification to affect the weather, whether good or bad actors. He's like, I'm glad and I'm hoping that this doesn't fall into the wrong hands. Probably because he has access to that technology. I'm sure of it. You don't get to be number one in AI. You don't get to be number one in drone technology unless you've dabbled a little bit into weather modification. It's just, they just kind of rub hands with each other. If you're talking about stopping Russia from attacking you, you're going to be looking into everything. Weapons, all kinds of stuff. We're building armory vehicles for Ukraine in Ontario. It's a known thing. They hired over 250 engineers from Ukraine to build armories that we ship to Ukraine on our dollar. We don't get anything out of that. Zero. So I know we're in partnerships with Ukraine under the table, Canada. I know the US is sending weapons to Ukraine. They're also sending landmines, millions of landmines to Ukraine as well. So I know there's deals being made under the table. So this whistleblower could say things like, look, here's you think the Diddy list is bad? this will blow the Diddy list out of the water. And you're probably only hearing me talk about this kind of stuff in this shape. And this is, I think this is breaking into more of a story than meets the eye. So I think you need to subscribe to this channel. You need to double check to make sure that you're still subscribed to this channel, because what happens is some of my subscribers get unsubscribed by Google. They don't like me talking about this kind of stuff. So make sure, share this in case something happens, it gets taken down or whatever it is. This isn't conspiracy. This, to me, is truth telling. If this list comes out, it'll be bigger. And I'm just waiting for Tucker Carlson. I'm just waiting for Candace Owens to start talking about this company. I'm shocked that they're not. It seems like I'm the first guy that's talking about this over and over again. And this is getting deeper and deeper. Now we got a whistleblower that's going to also sing like a canary. I don't know why I don't have thousands of views or thousands of, like, 100,000 subscribers. I have an idea why, but this could get squashed. It is what it is. Like, I'm actually shocked. I'm shocked because this, to me, this is what do you want to say? This is here's an example right here. I think it's this. This is breaking news. Whistleblower coming down the pipes. This is breaking news. But people are still wondering about whether or not weather modification is real. They're still wondering about cloud seeding, whether or not it's real. This is going to blow over unless more people talk about this. More people are going to get hurt. More counties are going to be affected. We have to talk about this stuff. Don't forget to like and subscribe as we go. Okay, it gets better. I'm telling you, this interview gets better, man. Get your popcorn. Here we go.
I think if people are trusted with information, if the government is able to disclose to us what activities are going on, I think that people will rightfully either feel more safe and comfortable about these technologies or feel less safe about them. And then we can regulate appropriately, right? So the whistleblower that she's alluding to, I suspect I know who that is.
They don't believe how toxic this is. If you're still using a plastic or wooden cutting board, you need to hear this.
Without getting into whether they're a credible source or not, I'll just say to all of, like, the Make America Healthy Again people, I am super empathetic. Like, I want clean water. I want clean air. I want clean food. I'm into regenerative agriculture. I don't think manipulating the weather is the only way to get more water on the ground for a more productive agricultural base. But I think that cloud seeding is one way to do that. And so insofar as Nicole is interested in talking about how to make America healthy again, how to ensure that our skies and our climate is clean, like, I am totally down to do that and appreciate at least the sentiment around inquiring about what's going on.
I mean, my inclination is she's talking about you. You know, whether she put the word geoengineering in or cloud seeding, I mean, the timing, she's got to be talking about you. And I mean, she's obviously very concerned. I mean, everybody's very concerned. I'm concerned. And but I mean, as far as this whistleblower, you don't have to name a name because, you know, it's not factual yet. But what position does this person hold, and why would they not be credible?
If it is who I think it is, and it might not be, right? I think it's someone that used to work in a part of the Air Force that was unrelated to any clandestine operations or attempts at cloud seeding or geoengineering, but I think has made a name for themselves in posting inflammatory false information about this. And that gets into a bigger point, right? Over the course of the last few days, fine. A lot of people have offered death threats. So be it, right? Like, I'm happy to continually engage in good faith with the questions and concerns that people have, because emotions are running high right now for good reason. Like, there has been a natural disaster and a tragedy. Part of the problem is that there are these accounts online, be they anonymous or even public figures, right? Like government figures, politicians. People have come out and knowingly posted false information or insinuated in their posts that cloud seeding had something to do with these floods, despite knowing that there's no way it possibly could have. And they've done so either for Elon bucks on X or just to rally political support to them from.
I'm not getting anything from Elon. I'm not getting anything from politicians or anything. All I'm doing is documenting what you say, and then the next day you say something different. That's all I'm doing. I'm like, but you said here. I'm trying to help you, Augustus. I'm saying shut your mouth. I'm saying stop doing the interviews because this is hurting you. What kind of a biased person would tell you to stop? If I was biased, if I wanted your operation shut down, why would I tell you to stop? It's in your favor to stop talking, but you keep doing it. So I got to keep documenting this stuff because in some ways you're actually perjuring yourself. You don't even know it right now. You're so young and naive that you don't even know you're becoming a scapegoat. And I'm not even making up stuff. I'm just like, oh, this is what you're up to, and you're saying it. I'm just filling in the gaps. I'm going, oh, okay. Here's what you said here. But then you said this, but you said that. So I can't get into trouble for stuff that you're saying. You're doing it on these people's channel. All I'm doing is rehashing it, going, look what's here. So I'm not getting death threats. I'm not doing anything illegal. All I'm doing is reviewing what you're saying. And I'm actually trying to help you and say, don't say stupid stuff. Don't do that. You're going to get yourself in trouble. And I'm not saying that cloud seeding is bad. Alberta is the capital cloud seeding of Canada. It's in my backyard. I've seen it happen with my own eyes. On Thursday, it happened. Cloud seeding. Somebody seeded just west of Cochrane, and within 15 minutes, we had rain, and then it was gone, blue sky. I know that happens. What they're trying to do in Alberta is a little bit different than what's going on in Texas. We get massive hailstones, massive, and they destroy homes, they destroy cars. They're sending, it's almost like an Air Force where they go up and they fight the clouds, because if they seed the clouds, the hail can actually get smaller and then drop. And when it drops, it's tiny. It doesn't crack your windshield. It doesn't destroy your home, the panels on the home, your yard, all this kind of stuff. So from that perspective, cloud seeding is actually a good tool to use. But we're asking the question here because you're telling us you got warning before the flood. You can't get into trouble for asking these types of questions. No one else is asking the question. Right? I'm glad Ryan is. I think he's starting to go, this is a little bit suspect there, Augustus. Like, would you be willing to talk about this in front of people? Like in front of a hearing, congressional hearing? And you'd be shocked at the answer that Augustus gives.
People that are rightfully concerned about the consequences of this technology, but don't yet know the facts. And I think that manipulating people into a frenzy and a mob to make a scapegoat, not just of me, but of people unrelated to our cloud seeding operations, that is reprehensible. I will always, because our Lord was forgiving, be willing to forgive and break bread with people that have done this. But that will stop. That has to stop.
I would do anything to protect my family, but there's always that one worry in the back of my head. If I have to use my 25% off your first order. I know what you're saying about, I mean, conspiracies run wild, and people are looking for fame. They're looking for numbers. They're looking for Elon bucks, as you referred to it. But I mean, the people they're fucking pissed, man. I mean, it's a lot of death and a lot of missing people, a lot of kids. And, when you brought up China earlier and how much did they
1.4 billion.
1.4 billion invested
per year.
Have you done any research on if China's cloud seeding program has caused any flooding, or is there any evidence of this happening with anybody else that's doing this type of stuff? Because we did see it in Dubai. We did see it in Dubai.
So you wouldn't be surprised to find out that China is not extraordinarily open about their program. What we do know is this. We know that they're investing all of this money. We know that they have 35,000 employees in their weather modification program. We know that they have 2 universities that offer bachelor's degrees in weather engineering, right? We know that China has stated explicitly that they intend to export their cloud seeding and weather modification systems around the world, and are probably interested in doing so, not just for the sake of benevolently producing water, but for the sake of, one, having leverage over countries for whom they produce water. And 2, we know that cloud seeding has before been used as a weapon. We know that the Environmental Modification Treaty came out in the 70s to ban weaponized weather modification internationally because the United States used cloud seeding during the Vietnam War to flood the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Do I think that cloud seeding wholesale should be banned because of that, and American farmers and ecosystems and cities and reservoirs shouldn't be able to use cloud seeding to produce more water? No, I think that would be not just an overcorrection, but unsound policy. But should there be radical transparency? Should there be serious regulation and permitting around this? Should there be reporting so that people are able to scrutinize the information from cloud seeding activities? And should there be monitoring from institutions like NOAA or the National Weather Service to look for nefarious or malevolent weather modification operations? Yeah, absolutely.
Can you change the color of rain?
Tesla's stock is crashing. The headlines say Elon's empire is collapsing. But what if?
No.
I saw all these things on X where people were claiming I think they were claiming it's your rain because it came down blue, and there's all these videos out there. There's no discoloration of the rain at all.
Not at all. When we cloud seed and create these snowflakes, right? The initial snowflakes that are created by water freezing onto the silver iodide, right? But then those snowflakes break apart and create more snowflakes, and you get this chain reaction where the concentration of silver iodide is de minimis. Like I said before, after decades of operating, we've only seen as much as an increase in 8 parts per trillion of silver iodide in soil where cloud seeding is occurring. There's already 2 parts per million in most American soil. So if even it is a statistically significant result, after decades of operation, cloud seeding has added 1 million times less than what's naturally there. So there's no adverse ecological effects at all. Certainly not enough to change the color of the rain. I don't know what that was. I hope it's not more deliberate inflammatory content. Yeah.
I mean, can you talk about the size of the 2 clouds that you seeded versus the tropical storm? What's the ratio here?
1 million times. 1 million times. The remnants of the tropical storm were 1 million times larger than.
Is that a factual number?
That is an approximation. What I'm getting at there is the best cloud seeding operations that have occurred to date have produced tens of millions of gallons. That storm produced 4 trillion gallons of precipitation. So that's roughly on order of magnitude, 100,000 to a million times larger than the best cloud seeding operations could yield in terms of water.
Other than the volume, how about the area?
Yeah, I don't want to perjure myself here, so I'll be as specific as possible, and people.
Interesting, right? Now he's starting to think, man, I can't tell him where I was. The only thing that he did not say is he can't tell us what area he flew over. Isn't that interesting? For all we know, he could have flew over Kirk County. Because he's like, I don't want to perjure myself now. Now he's starting to think about lawyering up. Interesting, right? Telling you, man. I've been telling you this from day one. Day one, as soon as I found out about it, I'm like, that's them. They did it. But I wanted to research and look it up and go, well, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Now he's like, I don't want to perjure myself by telling you where I was. So I got to get my lawyers involved now. This could be the last interview. I'd be shocked if he does another interview. If you know of another interview today, let me know in the comments, but I'd be lawyering up if I was him, telling you.
People can look at the report that I posted online with all of the radar data on these cells, but significantly smaller than the area of a county. We're talking in terms of acres here, not like tens of square miles.
Okay, so you're in a plane. Not drones, which you normally use. You're in a plane, and you don't use a normal use. You don't use 50 grams of silver iodide because that produces tens of millions of gallons of water. You don't use 60 grams. You use 70 grams, and you use a plane, and you're telling me that plane only flew 1,600 feet and only for 20 minutes? This is you saying this stuff. And now you're telling us you can't tell us the area that you flew over, and it's less than a county. Well, within minutes, a plane leaves that county going over 100 miles an hour, 200, 300, 400 miles an hour. It's not adding up, bruh. It's not adding up. Yeah, he has no lawyer yet. I think if you wanted to defend this guy, I'm sure his phone is ringing. Dude, you got to shut up. Otherwise, this is catastrophe. This is a huge catastrophe waiting to happen. You have to keep quiet. And don't tell anyone that you're going to speak in front of the Congress. Don't tell anyone you're going to speak in front of a national hearing because that could make you look guilty. Don't do that. Zip it.
What are some of the other things that people are saying?
I think a lot of people are saying that me coming out and trying to be public about this, some people appreciate the candor and appreciate the transparency. Some people think that by going out and talking to all these people, like it's clearly some sort of psyop. Some people have said that Augustus clearly isn't responsible and cloud seeding isn't to blame, but he's the fall guy for some larger nefarious operation. I don't yet have reason to believe that that's true. I certainly hope that's not true. If that is true, then we have to find out. The way to do so, I think, one, is through submitting Freedom of Information requests to all of the relevant federal agencies about what weather modification research or activities they do have going on. And then going forward, like reporting, accountability and regulation, more permitting from the federal government. And it's not to say that like at this point in time, people totally trust the federal government, right? I am very empathetic to that. I do not think that they are always great.
Nobody trusts the federal government.
Yeah.
Especially with all the shit right now with the Epstein stuff. No way. No fucking way.
Yeah.
The P. Diddy shit, the Epstein stuff, all within a week. Nobody trusts the federal government. Then we go the last 4 years. That's going to take a long time before anybody trusts the U.S. government. It's just the way it is.
Totally.
They got to give us a reason to trust them.
Yeah.
So far, that has not happened.
No, I agree. And another thing that keeps coming up, right, is like we will say something to the effect of like cloud seeding is a useful or effective way to produce more water for farms and ecosystems, and it's totally safe. And then people will say, oh, safe and effective. Safe and effective. We've heard that before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't sound so safe and effective. that is a really hard portion of the information landscape that we operate in now. I think the only solutions to that are, to the extent there are any good people left in the government, them scrutinizing this, and then me continuing to provide as much information as I can and answering as many questions as I can. There's people with like 4 followers on Twitter that ask me some question about silver iodide toxicity. And I'm trying to respond to every single one of those.
I see you doing it.
Yeah.
I see you doing it. I mean, what are some things? I mean, have you learned anything out of this? What have you taken away?
Nobody has my
Well,
back.
for one, I would say, despite all of our attempts to save money federally and cut the budget, right? Which in the abstract, I am in favor of, cutting the budget in a way that prevents us from building critical infrastructure for either forecasting or severe weather alerts and flood alerts. That can happen. If we had better flash flood sensors on the Guadalupe, we could have notified people significantly earlier. If we had better forecasting,
by we, you mean
not Rainmaker, but the U.S.
Oh man, if we had, I can't believe he went down this road. If only we had better forecasting. Well, you're a Rainmaker organization. Your meteorologist told you that there's a flood coming down the road in the next, however, according to your timeline, next 24 hours or whatever. Now you're saying if we had sensors all along the river, maybe that would have helped. Like, now he's getting in uncharted territory. I don't think he wants to go down this road. Excuse me, because if you had more radar warnings, that would lead them to you. But because there is no radar warnings, you could go wherever you want undetected. So there's a gap in the infrastructure right now in Texas. There isn't enough warning mechanisms in place, and that could actually hurt an organization like this, because if they could see that a flood is coming, they would say no Rainmaker anywhere in these next 20, 30 counties all around this area. But if they don't have early detection systems, Rainmaker could go wherever he wants. He could have flew over Kerr and turned around and dumped whatever and then left. Like, we don't know how that works. Now he's saying, well, you guys should have more warnings. Should have. We did. You don't.
U.S. government, yeah. The National Weather Service, or local fire departments even. They were trying to warn people earlier. I don't know if you heard those phone calls, but that was pretty hard to listen to. That's one thing. Another thing is, I think that although net, because of how supportive people have been and receptive to information and earnest dialogue, like in a certain sense, I've developed a lot more faith in the American people and our government. I also do know, and this has been pretty upsetting to learn, that there are people, once again, who know that cloud seeding and Rainmaker and I had nothing to do with these floods, who, despite knowing that, are trying to find a way to pin the blame on me in some sort of investigation or otherwise to drum up political support or, get the heat off of them.
Are you open to a full-blown investigation?
Obviously, that'd be inconvenient, but I have nothing to hide.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that the overwhelming amount of evidence that we've provided, that any meteorologist can corroborate, that any atmospheric scientist or hydrologist or otherwise can look into, even any individual person, just look at the timeline and the facts. I think that it's all pretty clear that there's nothing that we did that could have affected this. That said, if it came down to it, yeah, fine, sure.
There you go. So now somebody just has to ask him and book the date on the calendar, because he said yes, he would do it. They need somebody to point a finger at. there's no question there. Somebody wants the people affected the most by the flood want answers. And if this guy is the fall guy, I'm sure people are saying, so be it. If he is there and he wasn't supposed to be there, I need him to prove that he didn't cause it. Because we had family members that actually died and we want answers. So the most logical next step would be, because he agreed to it publicly, saying, yeah, I don't mind, I have nothing to hide, then have a public hearing, because this will clear his name and then he could take off. But if there's a fear that, he could be the fall guy, he's caught right in the middle of a hurricane. And I think he's realizing it now. Man, I came across as so cocky, but I don't know how high up some of these people are. They could turn on me. They could make another rainmaker company tomorrow and say, oh, we cleaned up everything. That Augustus guy, that was bad. He was in a bed. He shouldn't have been in this place. And then we found out he owed a lot of money to these people. And that's why he did what he did. And then boom, he's done. And then another corporation will come up and say, we're better. We're actually sanctified by the local counties and all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden now they're making it rain, turning off the rain, turning on the rain, all this stuff. But I do believe that Augustus will be the fall guy, because people need answers and the governments need to take the heat. And I think Augustus is now calculating in his head going, crap, I'm the fall guy. I hope it's not true, because if it is, I got to start accumulating dirt on these people fast. Otherwise, they're gonna blindside me. So I need to protect myself. I need to lawyer up. While I'm lawyering up, I got to gather evidence against these people, dirt. And I'll sing like a canary to make deals so that I don't have to go to jail and answer for their crimes. So I got to start documenting all this stuff. I think that's what's going through the wheels inside Augustus's head.
I am happy to provide any information should there be an investigation. I will happily engage with authorities as is necessary, should they so choose.
Has there been any talk of that?
Yeah.
What would it take? What would it take to, or is it even possible to 100% prove to the American people that it had nothing to do with cloud sitting? Is it possible to prove that? And if so, how would you do it?
So for one, I would say that the information that we have reported on already from our meteorologists does prove that. Now, beyond just what we've reported on our flight tracks, on our flight times, on the amount of material dispersed, on the clouds that we seeded and how quickly they dissipated, on the dissipation of the aerosols and the fact that we only dispersed 70 grams, like 8 to 10 Skittles worth of material, a day in advance of when the flooding began. Despite all of that, I think that is 100% proof unto itself. If we were to do more, you could get atmospheric scientists to run simulations on where the aerosols would have gone, how that would have affected precipitation patterns and the pressure systems in the vicinity. And you could doubly with like rigorous academic papers and publishing. Again, not that people are going to defer to that sort of authority or credential, but you could do that as well to further corroborate this. But like, I promise you that you will be hard pressed to find a capable meteorologist that thinks this had anything to do with it and is not 100% convinced it did not.
What else should I be asking you?
Not that people are going to defer to that sort of authority or credential, but you could do that as well to further corroborate this. But like, I promise you that you will be hard pressed to find a capable meteorologist that thinks this had anything to do with it and is not 100% convinced it did not.
What else should I be asking you?
You know, I think there's maybe like two last points just to think about here. The first of which, again, just to give like scale and context here, we haven't really gotten into like whether silver iodide is healthy or not, right? Whether it's safe to use during cloud seeding operations. I think when you just intuit how little we're dispersing on these missions, you can kind of get a sense that it's safe.
This is so weird. It's almost like if you're a parent and you sit your kid down and let's just say they raided the cookie jar or something, and you sit your child down at the dinner table and he's by himself on one side of the table, and you just sit across from the table and you just look at him. And he knows he stole from the cookie jar, and you don't say anything. And you just ask the question, do you know why you're sitting at this table? All of a sudden you just watch them sweat, and they look down, they look away, and all this stuff. It's like, is there anything you want to tell your dad? Anything, just anything. It could be anything. Is there anything you want to talk about? And you just sit there. He's going to sing like a canary. He's like, I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry. I took the cookie. I know I wanted just one, but I had two. I'm so sorry. So when Sean asks Augustus, what else should I be asking you? Well, you didn't ask me whether or not silver is poisonous for the environment. I'm telling you, this guy will sing. You squeeze him, he'll sing like a canary. And I don't think anyone that's above him, that's paying him, isn't going, this guy's gonna kill us. He's gonna kill our whole everything that we're trying to do. We're trying to geoengineer Texas, Nevada, Colorado, California, New Mexico. We're trying to geoengineer, and you're wrecking it for us. You're gonna cause us billions of dollars, Augustus. Make him the fall guy. It's because of him. Start doctoring things, whatever it is. We got to turn on this guy faster than slower, because otherwise all the technology is going to go over to China, and they're going to win this war over water. So we got to treat this guy as the fall guy, and I can see Augustus making deals left, right, and center for protection, to say, look, I will cough this stuff up if you really want to know it. And there's a lot of Democrats, so I can cough this stuff up. Or there's a lot of Republicans. I could cough up names, and if you want me to cough up names, I'll do it. But I need protection. Or it's both parties. Like, he's in trouble because of all these interviews.
But for scale, right? Like, and again, I want to make America healthy again. Like, I'm totally pro clean food, clean air, clean water, regenerative agriculture is great, etc. Just in terms of scale of what sort of toxins we're exposed to right now, Americans consume like 2 billion kilos of pesticides every year. We consume a commensurate amount of herbicides every year. We are wearing microplastics, right? There is microplastic, and we mentioned this in the last time we chatted, and that is kind of like the biggest clip. Like, there is birth control metabolites in the water that we drink. Like, we are exposed to an inordinate amount of toxins all the time that either we deem sufficiently safe because of how little we consume on a day-to-day basis, or that like is not great for us and we should transition away from, but is not like killing people or causing respiratory issues or causing cancer in an enormous way. The amount of material that we're using, 70 grams in an operation, is, what is that? That's like 100 billion times less than like the total amount of herbicides and pesticides that people are consuming every year. And like, I hope someday to be a big company. I hope sometime to scale our operations meaningfully and to produce lots of water for people that are in need. Again, obviously not flash flood alley and in the Texan Hill Country when there has been flooding, but like, one, the amount of material that we're using from silver iodide, that for the amount of silver iodide that we're using for these cloud seeding operations, it is de minimis relative to all these other things we're exposed to on a daily basis. And even so, Rainmaker will, just for PR's sake, just for the sake of making people feel safe, we will eventually transition away from silver iodide into something totally biodegradable, totally organic, just because I think that's another way to build trust. And it is going to continue to be our responsibility to do everything we can to earn the trust of people that have appropriate skepticism and concerns about all of this.
Do you mind if I make a suggestion? I think, when you're talking about transparency, that's what everybody wants with everything. They want transparency on COVID. They want transparency on Epstein. They want transparency on Diddy. They want transparency on Cloud City. They want transparency on, you name it. I mean, that's just where we're at. Like I said, there is little to no faith in the U.S. government on either side at this point. And so, for you, something that you may want to think about is document every single time you do this. Video, radar, whatever the hell you have to do, and I realize for safety concerns, maybe you can't announce like, hey, we're going to be cloud seeding in Salt Lake City today, but, or maybe you can, and document every second of what happens, or maybe you do it afterwards. Hey, I just want everybody to know we did a cloud seeding operation in Salt Lake City. Here's the entire video. Here's the radar. Here's everything. This is how much precipitation happened. And, maybe, and I don't want to look like I'm taking a side here, because I'm not. But I mean, people, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take transparency, and it's going to take case studies of how this goes, and so by building these case studies and documenting every single thing you're doing, basically what you're building is a portfolio of, hey, we did it here, we did it here, we did it here, we did it here. This is how long it lasted. This is how long it took it to rain. It was within the 15 to 45 minute window that I said that's what happened, or the 15 to 2 hours, or whatever it is. And you kick those out to the public every single time. I don't know if that's possible, but that's something that I'd be looking at, because otherwise, there will just always be distrust.
You know what the crazy thing about that is, Sean?
You already do it. Do you already do that?
We are regulatorily required to do that already. All of these reports are publicly available on state government websites right now. Should Rainmaker start announcing those ourselves? Sure, totally, absolutely. I think that's a good idea, and I appreciate the suggestion there. But we already have to do that in order to be permitted to operate in these states. Like, these states, back when they made these regulations, they realized, this is going to be a big deal in terms of like what its consequences could be, and also like people are going to want to know what's going on. They have a right to know what's going on. Like, the government lying to them all the time, people lying to them all the time, that's unacceptable. I really care about this country, and I will not lie about any of what we're doing. So I'll start making those things more available online, at the very least for the time being.
This is Pod 5, the first fully immersive sleep system. Intelligent.
We cannot do real-time reporting. There are simply too many death threats. Oh, this is what I was referencing earlier in terms of American terrorist organizations. There is a militia in Oklahoma that is running around blowing up and dismantling radar systems. They believe that the weather radar that's being used to monitor cloud conditions, what we're using to forecast severe weather, is directing energy into these clouds and into the atmosphere such that it is creating severe weather. I think that the FBI is investigating them, but yeah, like, it is not just concerned or emotional people online. It's not just paranoid schizophrenics. Like there are organized militias that are wrongfully trying to destroy our nation's critical infrastructure for weather sensing right now, and that also don't care too much for Rainmaker. There has been severe flooding across the United States in the past week, right? And people are drawing conclusions and correlations between that, right? Like in New Mexico, there's flash flooding. In North Carolina, there was flash flooding. There was, I think, flooding in Chicago and thunderstorms there.
This is interesting now about New Mexico. If you need a fall guy for New Mexico, this might be the guy, because he was there in New Mexico before it flooded. I just think he's gonna, like, he is singing like it's almost like he's being squeezed, but nobody's squeezing him. He's coughing this stuff up left, right, and center. I've been in New Mexico. I can't tell you where I flew exactly because I don't want to perjure myself. Weird, man. Never seen this before.
We don't operate at all in either Chicago or in New Jersey or in North Carolina. We have operated before in New Mexico. Our program ended there on June 30th. So the flash flooding that happened after the 4th had nothing to do with us. We also posted those reports. Wow. I think the two conclusions from all of this severe weather, again, are one, like we clearly need better forecasting capabilities, right? Like we need to be able to forecast and alert people to these things far before when we're doing so now in order to keep them safe. And the second thing is, again, I don't have evidence yet to suggest that there are state actors participating in malicious weather modification. But if we don't have a more serious regulatory framework to monitor this stuff, like how even would we know?
You know, another thing, I mean, have any major news outlets reached out to you for a statement to come on the news, anything?
Yeah. So I was on Fox.
Okay.
2 days ago. I was on CNN last night. I was on a handful of other programs. Interestingly enough, you know, it's funny because we'll get some group, be it mainstream media or some sort of new media or some sort of written piece, to lay out the facts and outline, you know, what's true and what's not. And I wonder if like going on mainstream media like Fox and CNN actually hurt my case, because people just said like, well, don't trust them either. This is clearly an op.
Starting to realize that
maybe it's better for the general public and sentiment, but I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to talk to them. In a certain sense, there's almost like, yeah, to your point, like nobody trusts anybody anymore. So I'm not exactly sure what to do other than continue to publish this information that would make it trustworthy.
Well, I think, I mean, it's how do I say this? I mean, it's a technology that people know little to nothing about. And, you know, we're seeing all these crazy things happen, like the wildfires in California, the wildfires in Hawaii, and the flood that just happened, and Hurricane Helene. And I mean, it's just, for whatever reason, you know, this stuff seems relatively new. And getting the info out there like you're doing, I mean, it's going to take a lot of education to build any trust at all. And so, I mean, I feel like you're being as transparent as you possibly can be. And it, like I've scrolled through your X account, and it does seem like you're trying to answer every single question. But you know, by going on the media, and I think you're just going to have to continue doing that, you know, to educate, you know, and get other parties doing it. But man. Well, Augustus, I appreciate you coming. Like I said, I just wanted to hear your piece. We literally just did that interview, a couple weeks before this happened. And I had expressed that in the interview. I was like, this is what everybody's worried about, and then it happened.
All right. All right. So I know this was a long video. I didn't plan on going this long, but hopefully you guys have a little bit of a snapshot as to what's going on. I know some people say my imagination gets the best of me sometimes, but unless you can think outside of the box every once in a while and go, well, okay, what is kind of the worst case scenario, or what's happening? What aren't we seeing? Because remember, I told you this on July 2nd. I said, when everybody looks this way and says there's nothing to see here, look this way, and everybody's going this direction, I will stand up and I will purposely look this way and look around. That's how I'm built. I'll look in the other direction and I'll see, what am I missing? I'll ask the questions. What am I missing? And I think I tried to explain it to you throughout this little video series of what's going on, what seems to be happening behind closed doors, also hinting at maybe this is what could be happening as well, why they're doing it, what the reason would be, because people are saying, well, why would they use cloud seeding to flood this area? That doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't think they would do that. And there's so many layers here. Again, I'm not saying that this guy is a criminal. He's doing what he was hired to do, which was to help fill the aquifers. But sometimes the filling the aquifers could be at the expense of other counties outside of that region. And what I would be proposing, same thing as Sean Ryan, is what about the idea of letting people know, hey, we're filling this, we're seeding over here to fill these aquifers. We also are aware that there's a storm going on, so we're not going to do it this day. We'll wait till that storm subsides, then we'll continue our seeding and be transparent that way. But I think this got out of hand where there's no transparency. Like here in Alberta, I could watch the cloud seeding happen because they're being transparent. They're hired by the insurance companies to get rid of hail. We're not trying to get rid of drought because it rains a lot around these parts. What our problem seems to be is forest fires. That's a whole nother thing. But lately there's been so much rain and stuff that I haven't seen any smoke for a couple of 2-3 weeks, but that's a whole nother thing. Like before that, so many forest fires. As soon as the snow melted, forest fires everywhere. I'm like, this is crazy. So again, I'm not saying that this company is evil and all this. I'm saying what's going to happen is it feels like people are going to need an scapegoat. And because this guy is singing like a canary, because there's so many words, he's going to perjure himself, and it's going to be the perjury that's going to either get him in trouble instead of just saying, you know what? I'm not doing one interview because you have to provide evidence that I did something wrong. The fact that he came out right out of the gate saying, I never did anything is weird. If you never did anything, like I don't go around doing news things saying, I never stole a chocolate bar, I never stole from that store. You're going to be creating awareness. People are going to be like, what are you talking about stealing it? And then all of a sudden the grocery stores start counting all their chocolate bars, and then another store counts their chocolate bars. They're like, wait a minute, this store has chocolate bars missing or whatever it is. So it's like I do agree with you, Augustus. You're causing more harm for your case by spilling the tea, so to speak, so early. It just happened. if there's other cloud seeding organizations, you're taking all the heat off of them. You're taking everything. And my question is, why? You didn't need to. If you didn't do it and you're hired, let them answer. Let them say, we hired a cloud seeding company. Let them do all that stuff. Let them do all the explaining, all the talking. You don't have to say one word. But now that you've been saying so much since, well, even before July 4th, you're on Sean Ryan's channel talking about how great your company is. And you were doing this for months, saying that you have the ability to make it rain. You even named your company Rainmaker. And now you just coughed up something that I didn't even think was on the radar. You were in New Mexico before June 30th, and they got hit with the worst flooding ever. They're starting to call this stuff the 1,000-year flooding, meaning this would never happen again. This has never happened in the past, and this will never happen again like this. Flooding. This is a 1,000-year flood. This is not a 100-year flood. And it just happens to be that you had a Rainmaker organization within 100 miles and is not telling you exactly where he flew because he doesn't want to perjure himself. You get him at places where they have the worst flood ever. And he's there. He's there before the New Mexico flood. Then it flooded. He's there in the area within 100 miles of the worst flood in Kerr County history. And over 100 people are missing, or dead, I should say. Same thing in New Mexico. I don't know, man. I keep saying it. Like if he had watched my channel a couple of days ago, I said to him, stop doing interviews, Augustus. You're not helping your cause. Shut your mouth. Shut your trap. Stop talking. Because you haven't even begun to be squeezed yet. And when you get squeezed, you're going to be looking around, you're going, who could I rat on? Because this is bad. I'm not going down with the ship because you're so young. You're like, this can't be the end of my life. I can't be in jail the rest of my life. This is not my fault. It's your fault. And they're going to squeeze him, and he's going to start coughing up names. I'm just waiting for Tristan Tate to start showing up here because there's some interesting ideas that Augustus had said that he, I think it was on Twitter or somewhere on X, that he admires Tristan Tate. And we know Tristan Tate is an influencer, and he likes these uppity companies where they're world changers and all this kind of stuff. So he's kind of against the system. Augustus kind of fits that mold of being against the system as well. Like he doesn't like to be controlled or regulated. He might say it on the outside, yeah, we like it, but he actually works inside that environment where they're not controlled so much. The public doesn't get to know what's really going on. And if we ask, if we press, all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't want to perjure myself. But we put everything out in the public for you. Really? Do you? What plane did you fly? When did it take off? Where did it land? I want to know that. It's hard to find. It's hard to find right now what plane it was. I'm sure if I did some digging, I could find that plane. But again, there's a whistleblower about to sing like a canary, and this thing could just blow open by the end of the week. We don't know. Lots going on here. Lots of stuff. This isn't just a little tiny natural incident. I think this is big stuff. I think there's more that's going to come. Again, I'm surprised that people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, all these other people aren't talking about this. Maybe they got their eyes too much focused on the Diddy list. See how this could be distracting for people. What Trump is saying, wars going on in Israel, Syria, Iran, all this stuff, and we're not paying attention on our home front. I think sometimes we need to just take a look around and look behind us and go, wait a minute. While we're busy watching all this stuff, we have missing children. We have children dying right here on our own border. And whenever we ask questions, they're like, no, nothing to see here. This could never happen. This is nothing. Look to what's going on overseas. Look at China. China is spending so much money. They're bad. Look at the war in Ukraine, Russia. Let's just keep showing news footage of all that stuff. Meanwhile, your country is at war over water, and it's happening beneath your feet, and you're unaware of it right now because you can't believe anybody could do this kind of thing on your own turf. And this is why I have this channel, is to talk about the difficult conversations like this, to look and overturn every single stone. Hopefully you got something out of this. Make sure and subscribe to this channel. Love you guys. I'll see you in another video. That's it for today. Bye for now. See ya.
Black Swan Revelations here on YouTube brought you today's mind-bending journey. Dive into the discussion, your comments, questions, prayer requests, and powerful testimonies of Jesus' love are what fueled this community. Did today's episode hit home? Smash that like button. New here? Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a live stream or a video upload. Thanks for being part of today's adventure. Catch you in the next video, or maybe even in the clouds. Stay curious, stay blessed.